Good evening, all. Call to order the December 12th, 2019 regular meeting of the Santa Barbara Community College District Board of Trustees. Did I get that out correct? For all those who wish to participate, we're going to stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, looks like every trustee is present, including our student trustee, Mr. Ibeshi. And I will note for the record that Trustee Parker has to leave somewhat early tonight. Who knows, maybe we'll be done. But
Wait a minute, I object to that laughter.
What time do you have to leave, Kate?
so
5?
with that, I'll again welcome everybody and ask, Angie, do we have any speakers?
No, we do not.
So I don't have to explain what public comments are all about.
No, not
Okay.
today.
We're moving right along to recognitions. And this evening, there's actually 3 people who are on the list for recognitions. All have been here 10 years. 2 of them could not be here tonight. Carlene Evans, who's an accounting technician 2, and Tracy Kaltenbrunn, who is an information system specialist. So in their absence, we would recognize their outstanding service to the college. And we have one who's present, Anna Carter, accounting technician number 3, who her supervisor, Nicole Hubert, is here. If they could come down, please.
Good evening, Dr. Benjamin, members of the board. Thank you for allowing this opportunity to recognize Anna Carter for her 10 years of service to SBCC. This is truly my honor, and as Anna is an exemplary person, a top-notch employee, and a true vaquero. She has served her 10 years as a full-time permanent employee in student finance. However, her SBCC path started back in 2003 when she moved from Mexico to Santa Barbara and enrolled as a student here. At that time, she didn't know how to apply to college, so she guessed placing herself in level 5 of the ESL course. Her teacher recognized how she supported and tutored her peers in the course and offered her student worker job as an ESL tutor. As she continued in her studies and developed her interest in computer-focused courses in finance, she took other opportunities offered to her, such as a student instructional aide in the computer applications department and a student cashier in student finance. When she graduated with her Associates of Science in 2008, a full-time position came open in student finance, and she went for it. And the college just hasn't been the same since. Anna's role in student finance runs the gamut between serving students on the front lines, advising and managing their student accounts, running behind-the-scenes programs that coordinate the disbursement of financial aid to student accounts and refunding credit balances, coordinating the hiring and scheduling of our student workers, managing student accounts who are paid through third-party contracts, such as Department of Rehab and the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act programming, among many other roles. She has been one of the unsung heroes behind our SBCC Foundation Promise program. She came into the project on day 1 when it was still a crazy idea that Jeff Green presented to the board, and helped develop the program and continues to manage the financing relationship with the foundation and maintain the student accounts that are receiving the grant. The program is an amazing gift to our community, and she's been an integral member of it. She is steadfastly team-oriented, collaborative with her peers, an advocate for equity, and driven to find solutions for any problem presented to her. Anna doesn't have an I in her DNA. She thinks in terms of we in everything she does, and that we thinking extends beyond our small team in student finance to all departments across campus. She goes the extra mile with everything she does to ensure our students are given the proper attention to resolving whatever issue they are challenged with. Anna is a vaquero through and through. She says SVCC has felt like a second home since day 1, and after 10 years here, she says every day is still different, every student is still unique, and SBCC still keeps her on her toes. And she still has never stopped being an SBC student, only now it's for personal enrichment. It's my honor to recognize her publicly. So Anna, thank you for your diligence, your tenacity, and your sense of humor. I'm grateful for all that you do for our students and our team and for SBCC.
So Anna, before you leave, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, thank you again for your service. We have a couple additional recognitions tonight that are not on the agenda. First of all, we want to recognize the service from our Vice President of Human Resources in 2019, Marcia Wade. Thank you very much. I don't recall. It's clearly apparent that everybody knows of your outstanding service to Santa Barbara City College. I know that when you came, there were no shortage of challenges that you were confronted, and you have met them all with good cheer and professionalism and expertise. And I know the Board of Trustees, as well as everybody else here, is very, very appreciative of your service. So thank you.
May I say one word?
Yes, you can.
Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, campus community. I took my assignment very seriously. I care a lot about Santa Barbara City College. It has its challenges, as does every employer. But I did consider the assignment a blessing. I've learned a lot. I have my moments, but everybody has their moments, but I have enjoyed it here, and I thank you for the opportunity to come and serve your community.
And we have one additional recommendation. This elegant woman sitting next to me, Dr. Helen Benjamin, who I don't know how to say this, but she sacrificed to come here and serve this college at a time that we really needed her. I mean, we needed her. She turned out to be the perfect person to lead us through these past 9 months. If some of you watch the NewsHour on public television, they occasionally have a feature called My Brief But Spectacular Story. And I would say that Dr. Benjamin's service the last 9 months would be a brief and spectacular story. We have raised with her, that is, members of the board, is this December 31 deadline real? Is that really when you're going to leave us? And we finally discovered that, yes, that is real. But I can't say enough about how much we have appreciated your service, Dr. Benjamin. And we have a special presentation that Dr. Hasland is going to present.
Well, Helen, this is a photograph with our signatures on it, attesting to our affection and admiration of you. I anticipate a quarrel with you about this. I can hear you almost say, "Why would you give me a picture of me?" There are two reasons. One is that it conveys how others see you. There at the graduation ceremony is the person whose special smile conveys nothing but pride in all of the achievements generated by the people who are about to come up to the stage and receive their diploma. And that is the statement of an educator, or perhaps even an educator's educator. The second reason is it's really not of you. You're sort of in the way. It's really of all the people who are out there. I don't know if the camera can see this, or okay, but we're at the graduation ceremony, and Helen is in the foreground, but in the background are all of the parents and all of the uncles and aunts and nieces and nephews and friends of those who come to celebrate that special moment, that special mark in one's life. You've achieved something. Now it's time to go on to the next step. And so it is for us. Time to go on to the next step, but not without saying appropriately, thank you.
I would hug the whole room.
We'll wait. Oh.
Craig, on the other side? Yeah. Over here. Everybody turn slightly in, so scoot in a little bit.
Okay, on to the fun stuff. We move to reports, and I see Patricia Stark here, all ready to,
Were you going to take the auditor out of order?
oh,
He's
hold
waiting on
on.
the phone.
Thank you, Angie.
Okay.
We have item 9.3, we're going to take out of order because the auditor could not be with us physically, but is available on the phone.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Benjamin, members of the board. I'm here today just to introduce Ryan Milligan. He's the Senior Audit Manager for Eide Bailly, which is our audit firm. If you remember, it was Vavrinick, Trine Day and Company. In the past, they've since been acquired. So it's the same company that we've used for the past 3 years. This is our 4th year with them. But this is, they've changed their names. He's going to walk you through our audit report and then answer any questions you might have. Ryan, do we have you on the phone?
Can you hear me?
All right.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. As James said, my name is Ryan Milligan. I'm a CPA and senior manager with the firm of Eide Bailly, and I'm here to present to you your 1819 Santa Barbara Community College District Financial Audit Report, as well as the 2018-19 Santa Barbara Community College District Parking Fees Program Report. As auditors, is what we do is we come out to the district for a couple weeks during the year. We perform tests over internal controls as well as some compliance areas and financial transactions. And at the conclusion of that, we issue 3 audit opinions. One of those audit opinions is over the financial statements of the district themselves. Another audit opinion is over federal compliance, where we look at federal programs that the district has received to make sure that they are in compliance with the uniform guidance set out by the federal government. And lastly, we also issue a state compliance opinion. Each year, the Chancellor's Office gives us a laundry list of items that they want us to look at over various departments, funding sources, and so on. So I'm just going to go over some of the highlights of the audit report. I believe it's like about 110 pages, so I'm not going to take up everybody's whole night going over this entire thing. But I will be available for questions. The first page I do want to bring your attention to is the very top of page 3. On the top of this page, there's a heading Opinions. And the very first sentence starts with, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material aspects the respective financial position of the business type activities. This wording is considered an unmodified opinion. That is the highest level of assurance that auditors can give. This obviously is our financial statement opinion. The next thing, if you want to go to page 5, this is a section, it's called the Management's Discussion and Analysis. And I always try and tell boards, if you read nothing else from this very dry, large document, read these pages. They are very highly summarized financial information that's been prepared by management. And they also put in a lot of narrative and context over the financial highlights of the year, some budget issues and economic factors going into the future. Again, that section is only a couple pages, and if you take nothing else out of this report, please take that one part. Now, I want to jump all the way to page 71. I know this is a schedule that has been requested in the past to just kind of go over briefly, and this has to do with the district's STRS and PERS liabilities. If you go between 71 and you turn the page, it kind of continues over, so it has 5 years of information, which is how long those liability amounts have been presented in the audit report. One thing I do want to point out is on the very top of 71, is the STRS liability, and if you look at that one's actually went down $3 million this year. Overall, between PERS and STRS, the district decreased over prior years, and you are actually the only district I have seen in 5 years where the liability has actually gone down from one year to the other year. One reason for that is as these PERS and STRS employer contributions are increasing, they are getting better funded at the liability issue, so hopefully this will be a continuing trend. I also want to skip to page 96. This page right here is what I like to call the auditor's report card of the district. It's a summary of our 3 opinions, again, over the financial statements, the federal awards, and the state awards. And you can see that all 3 opinions were unmodified. We also did not note any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls over the financial statements or the federal awards. And towards the bottom, you can see the federal program we audited was the Student Financial Assistance Cluster, which is your financial aid program, which makes up roughly, it makes up about 80 to probably 85% of your total federal awards. So for an audit, getting 80% coverage is pretty good. The last thing I want to point out is the following pages, which you will notice are blank. I always make a joke that auditors are negative people in that we are not allowed to give positive assurance. So since we can only give negative assurance, getting blank pages from an auditor is a good thing. Had we noticed any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, which have a pretty high threshold, they would have been on this page. And that's my brief overview of the district audit report. Are there any questions?
Trustee Parker?
I don't have questions. I just want to say thank you. That was really surprising news about the pension liability. Great to see. And also, I love being at a district where there are no findings. So thank you. That's great. And thank you to our financial team here on campus, because that's what makes it happen. So thanks
I do want to say, when we come out and audit, it's not just financial. We are also in student services. We are in human resources. We're at the bookstore. We're all over the place. And we get nothing but cooperation from everyone we encounter. You have truly some remarkable people there and make my job easier.
Any other questions, comments?
Okay, then moving on to the parking fees program. This report is very small. It's really a kind of a department level program of the general fund that is required by the city. And the only page I want to again bring your attention to is page 3. At the very top, again, we have the opinion and we have that same wording that with these financial statements being presented fairly in all material aspect of the activity of the program. Other than that, there's not much to this one, so if there's any questions regarding this report or if anything popped into your head regarding the district one, I'd be happy to address anything you have on either one of those programs. Either one of those audit reports, sorry.
I think we're good to go. I don't see any hands raised for any questions or comments. So thank you again very much.
Well, thank you very much. I apologize for not being there in person, but I give you much thanks for making an accommodation for me.
Bye now.
Thanks, Ryan.
So now I think we move on to,
This is on for action, I believe, to approve the audit.
It is.
do I hear a motion for approval of the audit?
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. And all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Hello, and thank you once again for letting me be here and giving me the time to update you on faculty initiatives, the work that we've been doing. I always have to check my materials classroom-wise to make sure everything works. I'm happy to report that after a year of near continual discussion, the Academic Senate approved the transfer of the faculty evaluation process and TLU overloads to our faculty association. That process should be beginning immediately. And that is, in my memory, the first time we've actually made this type of transfer back to the FA. So times are changing, and so are we. I'm sure you will be hearing more about that as time goes on. Faculty, I think, made a material contribution to our new mission statement, our strategic directions, and a little bit to our facilities master plan, so we really enjoyed being involved in those processes. More on that later. We set a Senate retreat for January 29th to discuss what our response to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Survey will be. We're going to turn over a whole Senate meeting to that. We hope to have it facilitated, so we'll be able to report back on what our official response will be at that time. And we had nominated Dr. Manu Eskandari for the 2019-20 Hayward Award, which is the highest honor you can give a community college faculty member in Santa Barbara. And I just want to take a couple of minutes to read some of the things from his nomination. In 1996, Manu, he's a friend, so I'll call him by his first name, was instrumental in bringing Phi Theta Kappa to our campus. Since then, the Society has enabled thousands of students from our campus to seek membership and become beneficiaries of its vast network and the millions of dollars in transfer scholarship it offers its members exclusively. Our chapter has a diverse membership, and our leadership has traditionally drawn from EOPS and international students, giving them the kind of experience and leadership that students rarely get at a two-year college. It is not an exaggeration to say that Phi Theta Kappa on our campus has literally changed students' lives. He also extended student learning by developing learning opportunities outside the classroom and outside California. In 2012, Manu created a Sacramento internship program, taking students to Sacramento for a one-week internship for the study of how California is governed. He does this during spring break, by the way. Traditionally, underserved students are strongly represented in these programs where they have the opportunity to meet with key political figures who themselves hail from minority backgrounds, such as the Attorney General, the President Pro Tem of the Senate, and our own representatives and hosts. The program continues to this day. He also created and led two study abroad programs, Vienna, Austria, and the Washington, D.C. program in 1997. So we send forward that recommendation with a letter of support from our academic senate, and we will keep our fingers crossed on a good outcome on that. And speaking of good outcomes, our SBCC Faculty Mentor Project, which was our nominee for the Exemplary Program Award, sponsored by the State Chancellor's Office and the State Academic Senate, was nominated, was awarded honorable mention. I never know how to say that. Was given honorable mention, and will be recognized January 20th. I also thought it was very interesting to look at the winners. I always want to know if I don't win, who won. And the winners were Coastline College's Cybersecurity Program and College of the Redwoods Pelican Bay Scholars Program. So I'm going to take a look at those and see what those are all about, because those were the two that outranked ours. Okay, I'm clicking away and nothing's happening. All right, so this is actually pretty interesting too. You've heard my colleague Margaret Prothero, who's doing an outstanding job leading our Guided Pathways initiative. She's reported to you in the past, and we continue to work away at this effort. And yesterday, our department chairs, let me bring all of this up. All the department chairs met, or many of the department chairs met, and we gathered in our various career and academic pathway groups. That's what we're calling these so-called meta majors. And my group is Visual, Digital, and Performing Arts. Journalism lives in that group. And Margaret asked us to write the text that we would put on the website that would introduce our pathway to students. And we didn't want officious bureaucratic language. We wanted familiar language that would resonate to students. So we had some fun with that. I'm going to read you what we wrote. We also picked dates for our pathway tours. When students come to campus for their campus tours on Friday, we're going to set up open houses within a pathway so that a student who knows they're interested in some way, they can come and actually visit the student newsroom. They can visit the Garvin Theater. They'll be able to see and talk with faculty and students in those areas. I don't have time to talk about the VFO, but it's a really cute little thing where it's a brochure we give students. But anyway, this is our draft. Don't judge us, but it's the direction we're moving in. This would, if you were a student who would click on visual, digital, and performing arts, this is something like you would read. Do you like to create? Make your voice heard to the world? Tell stories? Collaborate? And do you welcome change and thrive on novelty? In this pathway, we can teach you how to make a film, cover a sporting event, perform in a play, build a set, run a photo shoot, design a website or video game, compose a song, create a sculpture, or write a movie review. And then we get into what each department does officially. So I hope you can see it's a different kind of approach, trying to talk to students in language we hope, Kenny, you can tell us you would resonate more than the type of language that we usually use. So we just continue to move along with that effort. It's very exciting. All right, come on. Oops. Oh, sorry, guys, my clicker is not responsive here. So today you're going to consider a really long exit report that Dr. Benjamin has given you. And I'm sure you've noticed that the top 4 really have to do with money and enrollment and how the two connect. So we have faculty who have been very involved in our Strategic Enrollment Management Committee. This is a group that Dr. Ralston has brought back with way more teeth, way more cross-constituency participation than before. And we're really trying to educate ourselves campus-wide. Another thing, I think that was your first item on your list, to develop a deep understanding of those complex mechanisms that connect to all of it, enrollment, retention, completion, how it all fits together. This is in the simplest possible language, but we want to write a plan that captures the totality of everything that needs to happen with enrollment. And my personal interest is I want to be able to develop a toolbox of best practices that individual departments can do to increase their productivity. But I will tell you, and this is something that you're going to hear again and again, Dr. Benjamin, you didn't put in your memo, that we are committed to a comprehensive college. That means our low enrollment programs are just as valued as our high enrollment programs, and we want to work creatively together to figure out how to keep all of us. I'm from visual, digital, and performing arts, and I will argue again and again how important the arts and humanities are to a full, comprehensive education. And you know, Dr. Benjamin, if you can stand more accolades, I could not resist. Dr. Haslam talked about the educator's educator, and that really struck a chord with me. Because I've worked in higher ed, I'm going to read it, guys. Sorry. I've worked in higher ed in one capacity or another for almost 30 years now. And rarely have I met an administrative leader who's affected me so deeply, both on a personal and a professional level. I'm going to talk directly to you, if that's okay, that you are a woman and a person of color has made a huge difference. And I'm proud to be able to say that out loud and in public. The fact that we both grew up in Louisiana, under the most repressive racism one could imagine, has really only burnished your credentials, in my opinion. The fact that you brought an encyclopedic knowledge of the educational code, Title V regulations, and myriad best practices from around the state for shared governance has made such an impact on our college. The fact that you alluded to the 9 months, Mr. Miller, the fact that she led us in less than 9 months to update almost all of our key foundational documents, including our mission statement and our strategic directions. Both of those documents are before you today, and they're pretty much redone from top to bottom. I think both of them are before you today, and I think I can say with confidence that they're modern, and they're enlightened, and they're courageous, and they're ambitious. She was relentless, right, everyone? We can agree? But I think we all felt we were privileged to work with you to get it done. You came on our campus when we were tearing each other apart, and you faced our divisiveness immediately and head on. You brought people together time after time in your office for private conversations, and you really listened to what we all had to say. You tried to name the problem, this problem that we had, and codify those tensions with a sweeping diversity, equity, and inclusion survey. And the cracks in our college fabric that were revealed in that survey have really given us a roadmap of the work that lay before us. And this is most important to me. You reminded us again and again that we need to approach each other with kindness, with more empathy and understanding, and with forgiveness, that we need to model this behavior for our students. You made it clear that you were a proponent of calling in and not calling out, and that only with honest, respectful conversation can we reach our potential as an institution of higher learning. You and I disagreed significantly on several occasions, and you do not pull your punches. But I never felt disrespected or unheard. And I believe that if we can internalize and institutionalize the lessons that you tried to teach us, we will regain our community's trust and the national recognition that once put Santa Barbara City College on the map. Dr. Benjamin, thank you. On my behalf, on behalf of all the faculty whom I represent, you will be missed, and my deepest hope is that you will be remembered. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments. You said a whole bunch of things that I fully understood and appreciate and recognize, as well as I think every member of this board recognizes the qualities that she brought to this campus and the work that she performed. Our next report from Alexandra Montes de Oca, our student representative. Good evening.
Good evening. All right. I want to apologize for my absence from the last meeting. There was a family passing, and I was grieving that week more than the other times. So I'm sorry for my absence from the last meeting. I want to start off with thanking Dr. Benjamin. It has been an honor knowing you this fall semester. You are an amazing person, and I look up to you. From woman to woman, you are so powerful and so inspiring. So I am so honored to get to know you this semester. And then as for my report for ASG, we had our last meeting December 6th. We talked about our goals for the new year. Just to kind of think back about where we started off with 2 members, and we grew to 10. So seeing our goals from the beginning, one of our few goals that we had was to talk about the issues of food and home insecurity on campus for our students, and we were able to reach that goal. These are other things I will talk about at the spring Board of Trustees meeting when I give my formal report. But just as a little summary, one of our goals was for food and housing insecurity, and we did touch on that. We started doing a lot of movements to try to talk about housing insecurity. One of them was trying to make connections with the Policy Free SB that was local. And what we also tried to do was at the Therapy Dogs event that we had, which was also for our mental health, which was a great event held by the Well and the ASG. The part of it was for mental health, being around therapy dogs. The second part was we had a clothing drive for free clothes. And that was actually something a lot of the students greatly enjoyed. It was they were allowed to have some clothes for the winter that they actually needed. And there were plenty of students that came there that said, I needed this sweater, I needed these pants, thank you so much, this is something I needed. So that was something that we successfully were able to do from the beginning to now. Other goals that we talked about, of course, would be more about outreach, transparency of ASG, more talk about ASG to the students. Of course, still talking about a lot of the needs of students, and one of the big things we're also working on and discussing about is having an accessibility student or accessibility advocate on our board. It will be in discussion in the spring, but we are in the midst of trying to bring in more discussion about other groups to be recognized in our student government, and one of them is accessibility. So that is what we're working on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Next, we welcome back Liz Auchincloss. We're glad to see you here, and hope you have recovered from.
Yeah, it's very nice to be back. Thank you. And I want to express appreciation to all of the members who took leadership roles while I was gone and continue to. Jason Thornell and Beth Taylor-Schott, who chaired the CCG, and then another one I'll mention in a minute. But everybody stepped up, and I was really happy about it. I have a few thank yous of my own. I want to start with Marcy first, Marcy Wade, Vice President. She came in at a time, and I deal with HR quite a bit, she came in at a time when we were in a lot of difficulty, a lot of problems, for a lot of reasons, but we had a lot of problems. So I just appreciate her coming in, willing to take us on, willing to try to really much remake HR. A lot of things that happened that caused a lot of issues, and Probably you'll never know all of them, but there were a lot, and I really appreciate her willing to come in and help us out. And then I want to thank Helen for coming in. I call you Helen. We also needed Helen quite a bit, but a lot has been said already, but I wanted to express appreciation for myself and classified staff for you coming in and appreciating classified staff and treating us just, like we're also here too, and employees, so that's great. So I know you can't stay, but I'm glad you were able to come for the time you would. So we move on, but I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Okay. The consultation group met without me, which was good, and they've talked about the mission statement, and they talked about the strategic goals, and we're also working on trying to get more participation in different committees that both CSEA and Classified Consultation Group point to, so we have a volunteer form out, trying to get people's interests so we can broaden the input of the classified staff. But one of the main things they talked about was equity and an event that took place in October. There was wouldn't call it, but there was a hate crime that took place. And the council has worked quite diligently in the last few weeks to come up with our response and a statement about that. So I wanted to call down one of our classified consultation members who worked on it and who is going to read the statement. And that will be the conclusion of my report. So I'm going to sit down and let Lauren Mendel, a member of the Classified Consultation Group, and he was also a member of our negotiating team when we negotiated successfully our last contract. So I'm going to turn it over to Lauren to do the statement, which was unanimously approved by all of the Classified Consultation Group.
Thank you, Liz.
So you've already heard from the other shared governance groups on this matter, but last, not least, the Classified Consultation Group of Santa Barbara City College stands with and supports our Black and African American staff, faculty, and students on campus. This statement is made in response to the hate crime committed on our campus, the most recently publicly known incident in a long string of ongoing manifestations of anti-Blackness at Santa Barbara City College. Racism and hate speech are in direct opposition to SBCC's values, and we have a responsibility to take action in response to hate crimes, racism, bigotry, and other forms of discrimination and oppression that harm members of our campus community. As a participating group in the shared governance system, we are dedicated to using our privilege as permanent classified staff members to hold ourselves and other SBCC governing bodies and the institution accountable to the college mission and vision. We insist that action be taken to address the harm done to our Black and African American colleagues and students. We support the following action items drafted by the Umoja community and Black and African American students, staff, and faculty. The hiring of an on-campus Black psychologist or personal counselor. Building culturally competent staff. This includes training for existing staff and adding language specifically addressing the need for cultural competency in job postings, particularly for counseling positions. Hiring of a transition specialist trained in equity and inclusion to walk the college through meaningful resolutions for current issues as well as possible changes to policies and practices that impede rather than support impacted students. We are committed to working with the entire campus community to prioritize and implement these demands and to continue the work of building the capacity of our campus to prevent and respond to racist and anti-Black incidences and crises. Dr. Benjamin, members of the board, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, we'll move on to our last report from Dr. Benjamin.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to work at the college these months. I've done that just about everywhere. Every time I've spoken, it's been a privilege and a pleasure, and it's also offered lots of challenges for me. I've had to stretch. But I've also, as Patricia says, she's grown personally and professionally, so have I. I didn't really encounter anything new, but I encountered new people. And people are and have been an important part of my life. I care about people, and sometimes maybe to the extreme. And there are really wonderful people here. on this board. All of you, you're just devoted, you're committed, you're different from each other, you're a challenge to work with, but you're committed to this work that we do. And I really do appreciate that. And I guess somebody told me yesterday that you like this stuff, don't you? And I guess that must be true, all of it. And I've worked with a great team of vice presidents and with Luce, and it's just been a pleasure. Everybody's open, and sometimes I feel as though people endure me, and I know there are some days that they were enduring me. And then with the leadership, with Cornelia for the union and Patricia, the work they do, I know how hard it is. And I don't think I've ever worked with this many women leaders before, so that's been different and really wonderful for me. Paul gets to sit in. Yes. And then with our student body president, and then when I first came, Joshua was the student body president, and then, of course, having the privilege to work with Kenny, and he's so good as student trustee, they elected him twice. So that's just been a real pleasure. And then the classified, just all the things they do. I met with the custodians. Well, I always have to meet with custodians because they're around at night when nobody else is here, and we just come and see the results of what they do. And every single person is important to this college. And the classified have the most diverse roles, and they paint the picture of the college for everybody. They're just everywhere we go, and they're so important to what we do. And I've enjoyed working with Liz and that group of classified leaders. And then the tech guys. Do I have the mic on? They've just been really helpful to me in all the work they do with the boards and supporting us, and all of that's classified staff. And then all the managers. I don't know if you know this, but we talk about you every morning after these board meetings. We started having a debriefing session for the board. It's a kind of training for managers, and so we get together once a month just to debrief on the board so that they all know what's going on, what you're expecting from us as leaders. And the community, of course, and the foundation is just incredible. I didn't get to go to all those meetings, but just the support that the college has through the foundation is amazing. And Jeff is an incredible, incredible leader, one of the best in the nation when it comes to all colleges and universities. And so the community is so supportive and cares so much about the college, and it's just been a wonderful pleasure for me to serve here. But it's time to go. And I'm moving on. I'm going to really retire this time.
Oh, sure.
And I just want to remind the board that our holiday party is tomorrow from noon to 2 in the cafeteria. So please come by. There will be some surprises. Okay, that concludes my report.
Thank you. So I have to ask, does anybody have any questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Benjamin. We will now move on to approval of the meeting minutes for October 10, November 14, and November 4. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Also move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we have our consent agenda, which includes items 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3, and items 7.1 through 7.4, and 8.1 through 8.4. Is there any request to remove any items from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent
Is
agenda.
there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. So we now go to item 6.
I did have a question.
What didn't we
Just
do?
a matter of clarification. On item 7.3, dealing with new courses and program.
It hasn't been voted on. 8.5.
He's going back first.
I'm sorry? Okay. There are a number of courses listed as being deactivated. What does that mean? I guess the short answer I'm looking for is, can they ever be reactivated, or are they just dead?
Yes. Do you want that shorter answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Yes,
great.
they can be reactivated.
Thank you.
Okay, if no other questions, we'll move on to item 6.4, which I see as an action item on hourly staff wage rate increases.
No, we're going to 9, did you pass the consent items?
Yes, we did.
Okay,
We
so
didn't pass
you're
8
at
point-
9.1.
We didn't pass.
6.4 is not part of the consent.
Oh, okay.
Or 8.5.
Sorry.
It was thrown in the middle of it, but it doesn't say consent, so I'm assuming we have to
All
make
righty.
separate approval of that. Any discussion or?
Lindsay's going to tell us about it.
Okay.
Lindsay and Marcy.
And Marcy.
6.4. Members of the board. The minimum wage is something that has been set for, it was a 5-year period to be able to get it acclimated. In looking at the existing schedule that we had, there were some issues with it. And so what we tried to do was to make the adjustments so that it was more fair, would you say it was more fair, more equitable, and also presented it so that it could be presented for a 3-year span as opposed to each year at a time. That way it would allow for a lot more continuity and adjustment, and it's dealt with. There is another part of this schedule which will need some review because it did not make a lot of sense. So some of the positions that were associated on this agenda or this schedule are going to be reviewed at a later time so that there could be a better reckoning of them, because many of them were classified positions, so they really need to be associated with a classified employee schedule rather than the hourly schedule.
Yeah, so as Marcy mentioned in the past, we've been asking the board to approve these annual increases 1 year at a time. And this time we really wanted to make sure to do all 3 years at once. So you can see on that step 1, that's the minimum wage, minimum amount we have to have for each year, the $13, $14, $15. And you can see that going across, I kind of wish I had the transmittal up there, but that's okay. Going across, we held the dollar amounts of the higher steps until we get out 3 years with the attempt to make them all 5% apart so that each step actually meant something, whereas before there was kind of no rhyme or reason of how they got to the difference between each one. So that's why you don't see that bottom step increasing at all. Out at that final year, 3 years out, they're 5% apart for each one. So
But the 13, 14, and 15 are
Required.
scheduled by state law.
That's right.
Right, okay.
You got it.
Dr. Haslam,
I move approval of this measure.
any discussion?
Second.
Well, we got a second from trustee Koster. So it's been moved and seconded. No discussion. Call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. So now we will move to item 8.5, which is proposed contract for the Kaplan International Languages Program. And do you have copies of the contract?
Is this the amended contract? Okay.
Lindsay, is this different than what's on there?
It's the amended one for the I'll tell you right now. So Trustee Miller, if I could, I had emailed Dr. Benjamin because on the contract that's noticed on the agenda, it states successful completion of the light fitness class will give Kaplan students all privileges of regularly matriculated Santa Barbara City College students. And my question was, does our student services have the capacity to absorb that type of service? It was basically appeared as though we were subleasing our student services out because the students would just take one PE unit class and then have access to all of our services. And so that kind, I had asked if that makes sense, and so.
It prompted a change.
Okay.
Yes, so thank you for catching that, Trustee Gallardo. So that was under item 3.4. It was 2 additional sentences in that section, and I communicated with Kaplan. That was a very, very old agreement language, so we removed it entirely. So that's not going to be taking place under this new contract.
And this was approved by legal counsel.
Yes, absolutely. Kaplan's and ours. That's the only change to this amended document from what's in board docs.
So
Those
3.4, you have deleted the last.
2 last sentences.
2 last sentences, yes.
Sir.
And I reached out to Lanny Epstein early this week, and there was we remember a lot of opinion and press on that, and so that prompted, we all got an email from the Taxpayers Association, and looking at our financial crisis, can I call it a crisis? It's kind of a crisis. They're on the side of that this just makes financially fiscal
Yes, they
sense
sent
for
an
us.
email today.
Yeah, so I appreciated hearing that from him, that at least from other members, the reactions I got, again, we didn't get any community input, so I tried to feel it out to some of our most vocal and passionate supporters, and I think it's mixed. However, there is support in terms of just helping us get our house in order, at least in the short term, because this would only extend. Well, I mean, it's 5 years,
and
but.
formally it was 10, but we didn't want to have it for that long, so we asked for a 5-year agreement.
Yeah, and it'll take us at least 2 years to figure something out in-house, right? I mean, like, we're thinking that it's going to be at least a 2-year process to slowly draw things
Yeah.
where they need to go.
And we're looking at some other entities in the community as
Mm-hmm.
well that look as though they may materialize, but we're not at liberty to talk about right now.
Can we talk about what we have available for rental?
In terms of space,
Yeah, for us.
well, we have classrooms. Is that what you mean?
I don't
Uh,
know.
what we-
I mean,
oh.
when we're talking about possible other
There's a
rentals, I
meeting-
don't know what they are.
There's a meeting in the morning, so you want to speak to that, Pamela?
I'm not sure I fully understand the whole question. So if the question's, should we do a presentation about what possible things we have that are available to rent out to people for various purposes? I'm not the person to answer that question. But we have been in conversation with other agencies that might be interested in using classroom spaces when they're not being used by our student population. And we're meeting with another group tomorrow. That's part of that conversation about Kaplan. As our enrollment has been reduced over time, we have a little more flexibility in how and where we're scheduling our classes in order to meet our students' needs. And if there's available space, using that to rent out to other agencies is a great idea.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand, the Kaplan lease would set aside 4 portables.
Yes.
Are there other portables that we're looking at? Are these classrooms in other buildings? Are we fitting them in? I'm just trying to get a sense of that.
What I'm hoping may be helpful is that with any other agreements that we make, we're not at a stage where we know how much space other folks need. So as soon as we have these conversations and get requests, then we can assess if we have other space. Our focus so far has been on Kaplan, and we know how we have the space for Kaplan, but we don't have any other portables earmarked for anyone else at this time. So we don't know what else is going to be requested.
Okay, so with Kaplan, as I read the lease, they don't intend to arrive this year, next fiscal year.
Actually,
it's possible that they'll Can start
there was
in
a
the
possibility,
late in the
but...
spring, yeah.
They're interested in coming as soon as they can. They would like to be
Right,
there.
but the way the lease works, they get up to either a year or 18 months where we get no money for those portables and they have a reserve on them. We can't use them for something else.
No, not necessarily, not at all. So in the spring semester, we have classes scheduled to be in there. And if they have to be moved around, those are sometimes things we have to do with the help of the educational programs. It is possible that we move classes. But first, Kaplan needs to obtain a subleaser for their current space, and that's their hurdle that they have to jump through. So we tried to give them leeway within this contract that they can come either on June 30, or June 1, I'm sorry, or 6 months before or 6 months after, in the event they just can't quite find a subleaser by June 1.
Okay, but the way I'm reading the difference between the term of the contract and our requirement to hold these portables is that Kaplan has the right to the 4 portables for as long as before their occupancy, and if they ask for an extension, that could be, I can't quite tell, either a year from now, I mean a year, yeah, January 1 for sure, of 2021, or June of 2021. I can't quite tell from the way it's written. If you look at 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3.
The intent is that when they are ready to move here, they will move. We won't be holding the portables empty because when they're not here. Does that make sense?
So what I'm hearing is regardless, the building will be empty. If they move in, they start paying. If they request an extension, we'll fill it with classes. Regardless, it'll either be used for classes or empty if we don't have classes.
Okay, I'm looking at 4.1. District shall provide during the term of this agreement, that's the 5 years, starting,
The term of the agreement is in 2.1, and that begins June 1 of 2020 and ending June 1 of 2025.
right, starts June 1. But the district shall provide during the term of this agreement portable buildings 16, 17, 18, and 19 as rental space for Kaplan's exclusive use. So during that time period, it's their exclusive use, but they can ask for an extension, which doesn't change the term. It just changes when they enter the building, start using them, and start paying us. So the term period doesn't match when they start paying us, is my question.
The intent is that as soon as they're able to move, they would start paying. We had a hard time wording
But they have
that
the right
correctly
to
with
reserve the
legal.
buildings empty because they have the exclusive use of the buildings, even though they're not using them. That's what I'm asking about. Why did we do it that way?
I'd have to defer to our attorneys. Our attorneys drafted that portion. I don't know how to respond. Sorry.
Can I just ask for clarification? Because it sounds like we can certainly start holding classes in there. Those classes may need to get moved if, on Kaplan's side, hopefully they're able to get a sublessor. Is the concern that we couldn't rent it to anybody else?
That's one of them. We just hired an event coordinator. So they might want to use it.
We wouldn't be able to rent it to anyone else as soon as Kaplan moves in. Then they would be their 4 designated portables.
Okay,
Between
but
now and when
I
they move
don't
in
think
is-
the lease says what you're describing, and that's one concern. And then the second concern is that although they projected up to 300 students, they're promising 60, and that's 150,000 less our various costs, including we're building out for them. So it's,
I discussed that with Kaplan extensively, and they were most comfortable with promising to pay a minimum of 60 students. That's what was in the contract before, and they weren't comfortable with increasing that dollar amount per the contract, although they are projecting to have 100 students. That's correct.
so did we ask for more? I mean, they made the projections.
Yes, I did ask for more, and this was the best
But they're
negotiation
not-
I could do.
They're not comfortable with more.
Correct.
So as I understand the contract reading in section 2.3, that they're allowed a 6-month extension that they can request at any point up to and before April 30th. So what happens after April 30th if they haven't made, they have to make a request by then for a 6-month extension if they're uncertain as of that time. And then what happens after that 6-month period? Is that the end of the contract?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So they don't leave us in suspension forever, it's just this 6-month period?
Correct.
Yep, okay. Any other questions?
Motion to approve this contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Benjamin, did Dr. Goswami, have you guys, Dr. Goswami was?
Yes, he was in our meeting on Tuesday. We discussed every single agenda item
That was there.
on here, so he's aware of everything on this agenda, including the mission statement, strategic directions. He even had input on those, so as soon as he got hired,
You guys were like.
we started working with him.
So I'm going to, yield a vote of confidence to you, Dr. Benjamin. I fully trust that this was, vetted and we caught what we caught. My vote in supporting the direction you're giving us is that this is not just to keep feeding same, and that there's a clear message that this is to keep us afloat, to provide opportunities for our local students, and keep the critical services and the doors open for especially the multifaceted wraparound services that most of our vulnerable population needs, that just, it costs so much more for us to educate certain students. And so I will vote for this knowing that in my mind, it's because we have a mission and a commitment to our local students that need that. But this is not just to feed an account for business as usual. And I know that that's not the case because that plan you outlined, there's so many things. And so I don't want to be like, oh, cool, we got money coming in. No, we have to still keep cutting at stuff, not literally, but really digging through. And the plan that you emailed us was so detailed and so thoughtful. But this is not my favorite thing. And I know that you know that, and so I will have to, I don't vote for anything that I can't look at someone in the face.
Right.
But our numbers are dire, and so we need to bring some money in, and laying people off is not my first choice. But it's not, also, this is not my favorite thing to do, and I would rather not do this. But I see that we really don't have a choice if I want to keep the lights on for the kids that just took finals this week and that are registering next semester. So it's
So it's been a motion to approve, and there's been a second. Is there further discussion? Trustee Nielsen?
Yes, this is one of those issues that I appreciate the discussion that's happened on this issue. This is one of those issues that's like borderline, like as trustees looking at the contract, it's real easy for us to get in the weeds instead of taking a higher view. And so there are many questions that we could ask about this, but the net result is basically what Trustee Gerardo just voiced, is that we have to have confidence in the administration, for them to set and do their jobs. I'm personally not comfortable with and I don't know I'm sure you have some specific reasons why, and I'm not asking you to state those, why three or four specific buildings were named and called out. It could have been, maybe it should have been written just classrooms will be provided for at this time. I don't want to get into those weeds. I think that that's your job, and I have confidence that it's being addressed. Hopefully, we won't have issues. But a year ago, when we didn't renew Kaplan's contract, there was a misunderstanding on the part of the public, and there were comments and concerns about students, and and how we were acting, and some of those were misfounded. I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule. In fact, over my life, I've witnessed that every time I've looked at things. But overall, those Kaplan students are here like on homestays, they have transportation, they're not competing, they're not moving in the middle of our neighborhoods, and if they are, they're staying with a family. So they're not contributing to the kind of general complaints that we had and were dealing with just a few years ago. And so now when we look at this, all we did is hurt ourselves by listening to a few very loud voices, and some of those voices, certainly not all, did not have a total grasp on the situation. They just maybe jumped on board. I really have faith that you guys will just do your jobs. And we'll face issues should they arrive, we'll react. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. One vote in opposition. The motion passes. Next item is item 9.1, CEQA notice of exemption from the physical education building replacement project. I think Lindsay probably has to come down again, but this is to officially say that we don't have to deal with CEQA.
Yes, that's correct. I'm done. A CEQA notice of exemption is utilized when you're replacing a building in the same footprint as before. So that's when you're allowed to apply for an exemption from CEQA, and that's what we're doing at this point in time. It could have been done earlier, it could be done later. We just thought now was a good time. We're moving forward with this project, might as well get this hurdle completed, because it's an exemption that we do need to move forward with the project. So
It's an important dollar-saving exemption.
it is, yes, very much.
Trustee Parker.
I'll go ahead and move approval of resolution number 3, 2019-20, CEQA notice of exemption for the physical education building replacement project.
And is there a second?
I second.
And is there any discussion? All those in favor?
It's roll call.
It's a roll call because it's a resolution. Okay.
Trustee
Please call the
Vecchi?
roll. Aye.
Trustee Haslin?
Aye.
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Parker?
Aye.
Trustee Carninger?
Aye.
Sounds like the motion passes. Next, item 9.2, adjustments to the budget. So Lindsay just got comfortable, but they're not used to that.
All right, these are just adjustments to the budget, just to give you an update where the restricted fund and the construction fund are. We brought the general fund last month. We're starting to bring these to you quarterly where you can see kind of the big picture where we started the year with the adjusted budget or with the adopted budget and then where we are with the adjusted budget through December 31st. So most of these are fairly, no, sorry, that one's late. It's none of those. So, all of these are basically routine adjustments, particularly in our restricted funds. We have a lot of adjustments that happen as dollar amounts change. We get new funding sources, information changes. A lot of these, the budgets are set up with one thing in mind, and as they work on a program, things get readjusted as they change their spending plan. So they're fairly routine.
Were there any significant surprises of any nature?
No.
Okay. Any questions? And we have to approve the adjustments to the budget, so do I hear a motion?
So moved to approve resolution number 4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I just want to be sure that I understand this. I'm looking at the numbers, and it appears as if the change is, what, $1,250,000? That was on your chart.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
And that means that we are spending that amount more than we had budgeted. Is that correct?
Yes, there's also more money that comes in with some of that. And all of that is restricted money that comes in from either a state program, a federal program, occasionally some local programs that come in. And we're just regularly adjusting throughout the year on those as we get more information.
Yeah, I just want to know what's happening here. And this is not a great surprise to you?
No.
Okay.
So that was adjustment on the expenditures, but there's also an adjustment on the revenue, so.
Correct.
So the net effect isn't the 1.2, it's the 452,000. Any other, Trustee Croninger?
I would just add that we had talked a while back about spending some time understanding the new format of the budget. We changed our format this year when we adopted it, and I think that would help in understanding some of this when we get a chance to do that. Because we're looking at more categories, including restricted, with greater detail.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions, comments? If not, all those in favor?
Oh, wait, Trustee Aguetti?
Aye.
Is it a resolution too?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Haslam?
Aye?
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Parker?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. We now move on to, we've already done item 9.3, so we move on to item 9.4, quarterly financial status report, which is also an action item, but not a resolution.
Right.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. I think you can sit down now. Item 10.1, mission statement.
Just quickly, our accrediting commission requires that we periodically review our mission statement, and so we entered into that process on opening day. It has been, I assure you, thoroughly reviewed. People reviewed it in groups that day. It then went to our College Planning Council. The constituency leaders or representatives took it out to their constituents. We brought it back. We had so much input on this. And then the CPC appointed a small ad hoc committee to, we had, I don't know how many, 100? I can't remember how many pieces of paper, but anyway. And so they came up with the statement you see, but it was within what the commission requires. They tell us what should be included in the mission statement, which is in the board agenda. They're stated in the board agenda. And so that's what we present to you now as a first reading for your reaction to it.
Any discussion, comments, questions? Trustee Croninger.
Well, mission statement, I appreciate. I know Helen has been, what was Patricia's word? Relentless? In working on mission statement revisions and the strategic directions, which are the next agenda item. and that there's been huge participation from the college and the constituent groups. The board has not had a chance to really come together to discuss this. And looking at the fact that the mission statement is a board policy, 1200, and our process for amending board policies, which includes sending them through BPAP and having an initial discussion with the board. And also, similar issues relating to the strategic directions and the tremendous importance of understanding what the constituent groups are saying to us about their thinking and giving us a chance to digest it and understand it and see where we are. My proposal is that we have a study session on these, so we really get to talk about them and understand them better. And I just feel like they're foundational for this college. The strategic directions are part of the EMP, and as I tried to figure out where we were with the EMP, it looks to me like it's had additions and changes, and we haven't seen it. We're supposed to see it when that happens. So we could catch up on this stuff in a wonderful way, talking in a study session with help from all our constituent groups and with Dr. Goswami as well, to kind of come together on some of these issues and understand what's being proposed here and really get to terms with it.
Dr. Haslam.
Well, I agree. It's wonderful to include the board in these discussions, but I'm really pleased with the process so far. That is, I can recall a time when I served as Academic Senate President, when one of our senior administrators, who shall go unnamed, called me after a meeting. We'd had a lengthy meeting, and he said, stick around for a few minutes. We have to rewrite the mission statement. And together, in the next 5 minutes, we wrote a mission statement. I think that process betrays the level of interest there was in the mission statement. Today, we have a lot of interest in this. Students, faculty, staff, administrators, managers, everybody is interested in what it is that we do, and by implication, how it is that we do it. I'm very happy with that outcome. It's a long-range outcome. It is a long way from the time that an administrator and I, in 5 minutes, penned the finale of what was going to be put forward.
Any other comments? Trustee Aboud.
I think that I really, am I on? Yes, I really like the change of the mission statement from, I mean, the process, first of all, like Peter said, it should not take 5 minutes for 2 people to do this. It's glad it took how many months to do it from everybody being involved, but I like that it says, it starts with welcoming all students, explaining exactly what we offer so it's clear, and then putting in place the values of the environment we want here. I think that captures a lot of what we are and what we do and what we want to present to the public. So I think it's had a great process, and I'm ready to vote for the next meeting with no changes at this point.
Trustee Parker.
I really like the process also. I'll chime in. I think that's been great, and I really like the revisions too. I appreciate that it is now really specifically saying what the college does, and it's not quite as vague as it was before. And so I appreciate that. I do agree with Trustee Croninger that it's part of Board Policy 1200. And so I feel like if we have this discussion here, that then it should go back just for a last look by BPAP, and then come back to us as looking at 1200, just as a revision to the 1200, so that the mission statement piece of it, the specific mission statement piece of it is included. So I appreciate what Trustee Croninger is also saying, though, about a deep dive. I don't personally feel like the mission statement needs it, the way that maybe there's a lot more to talk about with the next item. But that's my 2 cents.
I agree. I think it's a really, really strong improvement over the prior mission statement. I remember when I joined the board and was reading the various documents and read the mission statement, I wasn't really sure what it was saying. And not that I disagreed with it, I was kind of uncertain about exactly what the message was. And I think this is a vast improvement. It's brief, but has, I think, the appropriate specificity. So that's how I feel about it. Trustee Beshi.
Yeah, I was just going to say also, I think the mission statement is perfect. It makes me proud of being a student here and just knowing that the school welcomes all students, and it's so captivating just reading it, and it's reassuring to all students. So I think this is great, and I would love to see us vote on it.
Any other comments before we move on? Okay. I think the next item kind of is related, the item 10.2, strategic directions.
So the review of the mission statement and the establishment of strategic directions provide the groundwork for the creation of a strategic plan, which the college does not have and sorely needs, and that is also required by the commission. So that is why we were trying to at least get these 2 pieces done this semester, so that the next step is to move into the development of the strategic plan with an environmental scan and all of that. The process here was similar. Lots of involvement. On opening day, people were divided into groups and looking at, so you see so much there because it's input, it's kind of what you get when you do input. The good thing about this, though, is that Dr. Goswami did get to weigh in on it, and he added the one because we had left out the student-centered funding formula. So under the one about resources, you'll see an objective in there on the student-centered funding formula, and that was added by him. But he has seen it, and he supports, what we have there. But this is again, a first reading for you to see and make a determination about what you want to do and give us feedback, whatever.
I was likewise very impressed by this document. Does anybody have any comments, questions?
I mean, I would want to really commend this document. It's so comprehensive. I appreciate the entire section on preparing for the impacts of climate change, which is something we've talked about at the board level a little bit, and we haven't had quite something tangible to latch onto to say what we're doing, and this, I think, gets us started there, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate the outreach to marginalized communities in our community that we connect SBCC to, and bilingual communications. I've always thought, having at least our agendas translated to create more access would be something that's good for the board to do, and just finally the commitment to an improved campus climate, so that entire section. So this is an amazing document, and I look forward to its implementation.
Trustee Parker.
Yeah, so this one, obviously, it's a lot longer, and I agree with Trustee Abu. There's a lot of great stuff in here. There's some things in here where I'm wondering, do they absolutely need to be in here? Because it is a very, it's so comprehensive that I'm worried that it becomes too much. And so, like, a couple of examples would be, making sound fiscal decisions, or conducting regular and timely performance evaluation of personnel. Like, those should be standard practice. And Dr. Benjamin, what I feel like is if they are not standard practice, then maybe we need to talk about develop, like maybe the verbs are not quite.
Yeah, and I do want to comment on that one, because we had folded it into 2.5, just assume that it would be in there because it says reevaluate and improve the hiring practice from recruitment to separation from employment. And evaluations would be in there, but after a lot of discussion, people were just really wanting that statement, thought it was important to have. That's why it's there. And so I get your point, but just as an explanation for you on that one.
And that's the kind of thing where I can see Trustee Croninger's point about
Mhm.
taking some time with it, because just as everybody else has had the opportunity to wordsmith,
I
so
agree.
too should the
Yeah.
board, and yet this is not really the place for us to do that. So I agree with Trustee Croninger that it might be good for us to go a little bit deeper on this, although I'm also, I, as a one-year trustee, I'm looking at that and saying, okay, this looks a lot like a strategic plan to me. What's the difference between this, a strategic plan, and then the old educational master plan? Is that what is meant by strategic plan? And so I kind of feel like I need just a little bit more.
The strategic plan then builds on this with the details of exactly how you're going to get these things done.
Is a strategic plan and an educational master plan, because that's what this was part of in the past.
That's
Are
where we
those the
put-
same things?
That's where we put it.
So
But it should be part of a separate document.
Okay, so that, so I just have questions about
Yeah.
that for the future. So that's something that I'm thinking about. And then really specifically on 2.5, which is reevaluate and improve the hiring process from recruitment to separation from employment to underscore the district's commitment to equity, inclusion, integrity, and ongoing learning. I completely support that. I think that that is very, very important to this college. I also worry because I am looking at what is happening in the UCs, and Ms. Stark, I don't know if this is something that I would want the Faculty Senate to give the board reassurance on. There's so many different ways to show a commitment to equity, inclusion, integrity, and ongoing learning. There are a lot of different approaches, and people will have different opinions on best practices on that. And yet, there's controversy in the UCs right now because of the way they're starting to hire with the diversity statement. And there's a lot of conflict at the UCs that I really would not want to see come down to the community colleges in general, and really specifically not to this community college. And so when I look at that, I just want to be cautious as I look at some of the problems going on at the UCs, and I want to be sure that it's on the Faculty Senate's radar. So that's all that I will share at this point.
Trustee Croninger.
Well, I made my pitch for a study session on this, and I still think both of them are so related that it's important to go back and forth and talk about how our strategic plan implements our mission and so forth. And I share Kate's concern. I don't have I've been with this board for a long time. I don't have enough background to look at this. I want to know what other colleges do with their strategic plans, other similar colleges. How are they thinking strategically? Because I don't necessarily see the word strategic in some of this list. I see, like Kate is saying, that some of it, gosh, we ought to be doing it. And I want to hear from people why they felt it was important to be in the strategic plan. But I mean, provide continued professional development for all employees. Gosh, I mean, is that an issue? Is that a strategic problem? Why? I don't know. And I want to hear about that. And various lists of updating different plans, well, they should be on a schedule to be updated. That shouldn't be a question in our minds that requires strategic planning. It should be routine. But I want to hear about why is it in there, because people obviously feel that there's something that needs to be said. So it's that discussion informed by where we were, where we're going, what other folks think is strategic for a community college that I would really like to have in a study session.
I noticed that the title is not just strategic, but, well, it says strategic directions and goals. Although it does read more like an action plan. Maybe it's just the choice of the word strategic that's
Right.
awkward.
Plus, we've gone from what was our strategic plan of sorts that was a lot shorter than this. And so I want to be sure that we're not taking on too much, as you mentioned, Kate, as well, that really we're leaping out there with so many things that we may not focus on the critical ones.
But I also want to, I think it's important that we honor the process here, that so many, as I understand it, so many people weighed in on this, and so many people offered their opinions that it was something that took a lot of hours by a lot of people, and this is what they came up with.
Well, I
So,
agree, and that's why I keep saying I want to hear from them.
Yeah.
I want to hear an advocate for why this was important to be here, so that we have an appreciation for that, that argument, whatever it is.
Trustee Nielsen, you had your hand up.
Yes, I did. I would concur with Trustee Croninger, Kate's comments. I think it deserves further study. This is a lot of points.
Trent, your microphone.
Okay. There's a lot of points brought up here. And, you know, to just read it one time is not enough. You know, we got this like on Monday or something, or Tuesday when we get these things and look at it. It's not enough time. And there's nothing brought up here that's not a function of management or administration or what we should be doing. It's like where it's being stated. And I need, at least before I could vote on this, I need to understand the different points much better, some of which I don't understand why they're on this list. And I'd like to know where else they exist, and I think a lot of these points are addressed in APs, and which I don't often have to refer to. I just expect the administration to carry that out. That's their job. But if so many people felt they had to be on this list because those issues weren't being properly addressed, then I think I need to hear from the administration on that. So I would like to back up Trustee Croninger's request to make this a subject of a study session. I really think it's necessary here before we get something so involved. I don't have enough time to understand every one of these points and why they're on here. Thank you.
Trustee
Well,
Haslund?
I think I'd support that. I think a study session might be one way of inviting those who are invested in this to come to us and talk to us about why they think it's important and to have a conversation. My concern about strategic plans has always been that we make them with great fanfare, we vote for them, and they go away. Poof. And I like the idea of continuing the conversation so that not only do we understand, but everybody else understands where we're going. And it kind of reinforces the momentum that is the inspiration to actually do something about it.
Trustee Miller.
Trustee Gallardo?
So 7 years ago, we went through this process. What was his name? Robert something, our consultant that did? Robert, no, the consultant that did it for us.
Oh, that was,
He's a very smart guy.
it wasn't a guy.
Yeah, Lori brought him,
It was the same person who did the,
Education Master Plan.
yeah.
Anyway, it was a very lengthy process. When I look at the institutional effectiveness website, they say that the progress made, the strategic directors and strategic goals set forth the educational master plan, and really the college effectiveness is measured by the progress made here. So all of this works in tandem, I think, with the mission and all our other plans. I feel like a lot of it was a good start, but when you look at first 6.5, 6.5 talks about this mission, but at the same time, the college was talking about like the new mission, but yet the old mission made it into this strategic plan with the climate change honors SBC's mission to foster global responsibility. And so I think that there's a lot of things that that are embedded in here that were the old mission, but then with the new mission in mind. And so once we iron all these things out, I think another first reading is what we need. As you start reading it, you're going to see that there's a lot of reference to the old, to the new, because it's all good and you want to keep it. And so I think that there'll be a way for us to capture all this and not rush into it, especially if we're going to be expecting the college to measure, have some progress towards this. It would be unfair that I would say, okay, well, what's, any data or any evidence to this direction, and it's not clear. So January, spring, I don't know, sometime in 2020.
Trustee Croninger.
Yeah, I was remembering one of the things that occurs to me as strategic, and we touch on it here about stabilizing enrollment, and I think we've all been talking about that as an important goal. And the critical comment to me, and I don't mean criticism, I mean really important comment that Eloy made when he came here was that we have had a high level of high school students coming, relatively speaking, and that demographic is going away. It's going down, and it's not coming back. And so we have a need to look at our community and look at the older adults, the pre-promise people who may want to come here and take advantage of what we have to offer. That, to me, is very strategic in terms of, and you mentioned, Dr. Benjamin, the environmental scan. I think that comes out of an environmental scan as you look at those issues, but I'm not seeing that sort of captured yet in here. So to me, looking at those issues is important. And I think Veronica has brought up another really important thing and that's the expectation by accreditation that we measure what we put down here. And so we need to look at each of these things and ask, how are we measuring that?
Well, I hear a support for a study session on item 10.2 and possibly adding in item 10.1. So I think that's something we can try to schedule going forward.
Your calendar is on the organizational meeting agenda.
Yep, we're going to discuss that later. Right.
On the organization.
Oh, at the organizational meeting. Yeah, right. So when we meet on the, was it the 19th? In addition to electing officers, we will also discuss scheduling. Okay, so if we could move on to item 10.3 and then 10.4, which have to do with revisions, and 10.5 are all three of those are board policy changes. First one, 10.3, relates to information, communications, technology, accessibility, and acceptable use. Does anybody have any comments about changes or?
Are you taking all at once? Or?
No. I just mentioning that these next three. No, we're going to take 10.3, unless somebody wants to make a motion to do all of them at once.
Well, I was getting confused because I think I had one comment.
On which item?
Board education.
Well, that's 10.4.
Yeah.
And what is your comment?
I think, and I didn't have time to go back to the tape and look, but I thought we had a discussion where we settled on language that the board president would provide mentors for each newly elected trustees, rather than the implication that the board president might be mentoring four new trustees. And I don't think I'm seeing that here.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I was like, Brown Act violation if you're.
Overwhelming.
Yeah. This has been to BCAP, this was an addition BCAP made, I think.
Yeah,
Well, I think that the green was, yes, it was not included, it wasn't captured, it wasn't captured.
When we sent it to BCAP and it came back as mentorship.
Yeah, I don't think that captures the problem I was trying to address, which was that the board president's going to parcel it out. They are not going to do four people.
I can go back, listen to the tape, and bring it back to you on the January 9th.
Okay.
And then my only comment was where it says that the shall include, oh, right here. So such assistance shall include but not limited to. And I was wondering if you could change it to like such assistance may include, because it says that basically it'll now include invitation to attend board meetings or conferences with the superintendent president. Well, what if we have 4 new trustees and we just don't have the money for all 4 of them to go to that one conference? And then here it says that they shall do it.
Where's that?
It's,
Which paragraph?
so it's Board Policy 2740, and it's the first paragraph pretty much in the green where it starts with the red. And it's the third sentence. Yeah, such assistance shall include, but not be limited to. And so that binds us, just commits us to the president having to do that, and we may or may not have the money to do that.
I think that makes sense.
So maybe like a may.
Okay. Comments on any other language, on any of the 3, 10.3, 10.4, and 10.5 items?
I move approval.
I don't think we need to.
I thought so.
Well,
Two
you
of
do,
them we
yeah,
do.
so
Yeah,
we're
it's
gonna,
action.
we're gonna
Oh,
pull.
action, right, second reading.
We're gonna pull 10.4, and so you'll be voting on just the 2.
So we're going to vote on 10.3 and 10.5. Is there,
That's exactly what I was going to say.
well, very good. Is there a motion?
Good job, Peter.
That was my motion.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion passes. So we're asking for further change on item 10.4.
Correct.
Okay. So we don't have to vote on 10.4 then. Next item would be 10.6, report from board members. Do any board members have anything to report? Trustee Abud.
I want to thank Lindsay and Paul Miller for having the food service tour and meeting with the trustees and superintendent president from Ventura Community College District. I learned a lot more. We had a good hour meeting, and I think they're exploring whether they want to in-house or contract out their food service. So learned a lot, and they were happy with it. And we had a good foundation meeting on Monday, and we had President Goswami there and President Benjamin were both in attendance. And I would just want to mention one thing another board member at the foundation brought up, and I think it ties into the recommendations for improving efficiency and effectiveness, the one about bringing in people older than 25 into the college. She said, well, okay, so she basically made the amazing point that for every dollar the foundation puts into the promise, by bringing more students up to full-time, that's bringing in more money from the state. So it's kind of like, what's your return on the investment from the promise to the benefit of the college's budget? Well, and she said, what if we looked and penciled that out for expanding the promise? If it would cost $1 million to expand the promise for this group of people, how much more revenue will that bring into the college because of the state apportionment for having more full-time students? I thought that was a fantastic point, and so something that I'd really like to continue exploring.
I think that's called leveraging the promise into more dollars.
Yes.
Yes. Makes sense. Any other report?
Yeah, I've been working with community leaders as well as campus leaders, thinking about support for a resolution dealing with climate emergency. We find ourselves in this situation, and it seems to me that, as is true for the County of Santa Barbara and a number of other entities, legal entities, they have expressed their support for this kind of resolution. We should be thinking about doing the same. And so at our next meeting, I'll introduce a resolution that will accomplish that.
And I assume you'll share that with us as soon as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can make it available anytime.
Very good. Any other reports, Trustee Gallardo?
Yes, so I continue to stay plugged into our local student dual enrollment. our PEAK students, which is our Program for Effective Access to College. It's similar to like our AOPS. Basically would fall under any of our Hispanic Serving Institution grants. And so Sid Hill from the SBCC Foundation met with Vice Principal Rosso at Santa Barbara High School. And just to get that connection and conversation going of how to better support the parents, along with Jonathan's point, getting in an 18-year-old in here means we can get their parent in here. And I still believe that improving the literacy skills in the home of a family unit is just going to ultimately change the trajectory for that whole unit. And so I remain committed to that. And on the dual enrollment front, I know that Melissa's office has been working with the district. And so we just remain patient with our partners at Santa Barbara Unified. And so I just want to commend them and their work as us, I mean, they're our partners. But the community's eagerly waiting for us to resolve this issue around articulation, and so it's good to see that everybody's connecting. So I look forward to sometime in the spring. We really want to get this on the agenda. It is just such an important issue for our community to provide access to courses and enrichment. And at the recent School Boards Association conference, I listened to the podcast. Just another benefit of dual enrollment is kids benefiting. Mental health is supported by the arts, and unfortunately our kids at our local high schools, especially our underserved, underrepresented students, because of the way that the policies are with second language acquisition, they end up taking so many more support courses, and so they don't have access to enrichment courses unless they open up their schedule by taking a dual enrollment course. So many benefits, and I'll continue to be plugged into that because it's really important. And the work the foundation is doing, I think, is going to spill into guided pathways, and I want to see that in the strategic plan maybe somehow. I feel like they're both working and spinning at the same thing, but we have to merge them together. And I know it's a process, but we'll get there.
Thank you for reminding us of the importance of the dual enrollment program. I know you will always keep us reminded of that, and that's good. It is an important program. It's, I suppose, our most significant relationship with the community, dual enrollment. Any other? Trustee Yabeshi?
Well, I don't know about everyone, but I'm ready for the break. Well, happy holidays, and I just want to say it's been an amazing year serving on the board. I know this is not my last semester here, but it's been a very good growing process for me, and I've learned so much. And also, Dr. Benjamin, thank you so much for coming to our school. I remember the first time I saw you in Los Angeles, I think, and we spoke, and you're like, what does the school need? And I told you we needed a miracle, and I think you did that, and I'm so grateful. I have learned so much from you, and I just told myself I was going to take a step back and just learn from you, and I think I have learned so much, and I think you just leading from empathy and teaching us to be empathetic on people and listen to people. I think that was great, and thanks so much for your leadership.
I'm glad you mentioned learning. I think that's one thing I meant to say in my comments tonight about Dr. Benjamin. I have learned a lot, a whole bunch, and for that I'm really appreciative, not only for what she's done, but what she's taught me, and I think probably taught all of us. So thank you for those comments. Are you done with finals?
Yes.
Oh, good.
I'm ready for the holidays.
You're ready for the break. Any other reports?
I just remembered something. It's really kind of important. I participated yesterday in a, I guess, ceremony at Cottage Hospital. We gave certificates to 38 people who had participated in our Health Professionals Institute, sponsored by our School for Extended Learning. And it was amazing. The majority of these people already have degrees. It's a 2-year program. The hospital funds it, gives them release time from work. And they were just amazing, talking about how much they learned. It is just one of those really, really, really special relationships between the college and another entity in the community, and especially these two, because these two are larger employers in the county, and the students who graduated were just so I'm saying graduated, but so grateful, and all the hospital administrators were there, and it was just a wonderful thing. So I want to commend Melissa and Jeanette Chang, I think, who coordinates, and then the classified employee, Emma Cruz. But it was just really impressive.
Thank you for telling us about that.
So cool.
Any other reports? If not, we will move on. We'll continue with Dr. Benjamin. Item 11.1, recommendations for improving college efficiency and effectiveness.
Okay, so I have a PowerPoint. I'm not sure exactly what you want me to do, if you want me to walk through it, or you just want to ask me questions about it, because I'm sure you read it with bated breath. It was just so exciting to read.
It was.
So what I did, I got help, of course, with some of this, but it's 12 recommendations to the college, just based on my experience here, what I've seen. And I know some of it's not popular, but I don't think none of it's anything people haven't heard before. So do you have any comments or questions?
I would personally like to see you go through
You want me to go
yeah.
through it? Okay, so I guess I'll get up. Okay, so, you have to show me which. The right one. The right one. All right, so there's some background. I came, I listened.
I came, I listened.
I saw, I conquered. Is that Judy Caesar? But anyway, so we've done some things toward the budget, and it got a little bit beyond the budget for me, because I started out with 6 and it ended up being 12. And then this was the last one, after I'd done all 11. I said, well, the only way we can get this done is to get people to understand why we're doing it and how the budget works. But people tend to think that it's just managers or the board that are the ones who have to worry about money, and they don't see the connection between enrollment and budget, and they are just inextricably tied. So that's the first thing I think we need to do, and that is not to say that there are people here who, there are people who know already, but I'm saying all of the employees, and I'll try not to go on. I have a whole speech, a lot of stuff in my head about this, so I'll stop myself right there, because I was going to say, no. All right, the second recommendation, this is the least popular of all, but it's probably the most important, because this is where the money is. The money is in the schedule. And so the recommendation is to develop a course schedule built upon a weekly student contact hour divided by full-time equivalent faculty with an efficiency of 525 at a minimum. That would be the goal. Now, none of this is intended for people to do right away or all at one time. Habits have to change. People have to learn. I've heard stuff people have been saying, and it's okay. But if we had right now an efficiency of 525, we'd have a surplus. We wouldn't have to do anything else in this list.
Could you tell us, what does that number mean?
Lindsay or James? It's the contact hours, so you have students do what, 60 for each course, Pamela?
15 units, 2 semesters, divided by, there's the math formula.
Right. And so you end up, so you're asking the English majors, but you end up with an efficiency level when you divide those contact hours by full-time faculty equivalent faculty, full-time equivalent faculty, then you get the 500.
And our current number is about 460 something?
Our number is about 446.
446.
The number I've been quoting is fall 18, because that data is the most locked in, and that's 451.
Oh, 451.
The numbers that show up in this report go over the course of a year and then drop below that.
So this would be about a 25% increase in our efficiency.
Yes.
I think what I meant was, what does it mean to the average classroom faculty member? With
The average would be about 35 students per class.
35, and that's an increase?
Well, for some,
Okay, but it would be clearly.
but then you have to allow for others, because as Patricia indicated, we want a comprehensive college. So there are some requirements, like for nursing programs. You know, you have the ratio, you have to have a certain ratio. And for English and other disciplines, sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, we say we're not going over 24 or 25 because of a lot of different reasons.
Okay, and that's really why I'm probing here.
Yeah, so
because-
that's the average, yeah.
Because, you know, we understand about differentials, different needs, different learning systems.
Right.
And that sort of thing. But on average, and it's because of the original statement that said this is the least popular, or perhaps most unpopular. But what does that really mean in terms of the number of students that might be added to a class? Is it one,
Well,
2, 3?
Well, we just typically say maybe if we had added, I can't remember if we ever did the math on this, if we added 5 to every class, it would just make a huge difference. What you want to do is narrow the number of sections, reduce the number of sections, and increase the number of students in each class. We had, I think we said 88 classes with between 5 and 10 students.
Yeah, I got it.
That's
But I
just
think that
not efficient.
The fear and the opposition, I think, dissipates once we actually see what those numbers mean. I'm guessing, I don't know that that's true, but
Yes, and
I
then, you know,
I think
for
it would.
some classes, you make exceptions for sometimes in the case of courses, some of the sciences like physics where you don't have a lot of students, but you have to have that. So maybe physics is lower for that reason because you won't get as many students, and then something else in the sciences makes up for it by having a larger number of students. So there has to be some real planning, a lot of discussion on how you're going to reach those goals.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, yes.
I just looked up the number you had given us earlier, and if you're looking at summer 1 and 2, 18, fall 18, spring 18, the overall was 436.
436, that's the number we have in the, in the document,
And,
yes.
and I just want to say that I just, you know, I agree with Peter, that when you translate that, the numbers to add to a class is a lot smaller than you might fear looking at these numbers. But it's critical. It's just absolutely critical, because my first introduction to this whole idea was in a report where Rocky Delgado, is it?
Rocky Young?
Young.
No, Young. Okay, Rocky Young, who was former CEO at
Los Angeles.
Yes. He had written about another college.
Yes.
That was at just about 436. He said the college cannot financially survive.
Right.
And that was a stunning statement. So we need to take it seriously.
It needs to be taken seriously because that's what's going to happen. If we know there's a continued decline, so there has to be some balance here. And the third is to create a revenue maximization model for full-time equivalent students focused on recognizing the college's established international and out-of-state programs that generate significant revenue for the institution by increasing non-resident tuition and lifting the moratorium, which I chose to use that word, on recruitment of out-of-state students. And so this one is, let's see, that number 2 was the number 1 least popular. This is the number 2. The college has relied on this as a source of revenue for a really long time. And if you decide not to rely on it, then you're going to have to find some other way or drastically reduce the size of the college. But you don't want to drastically reduce it immediately. You need to do it over time because you would just lose way, way, way too much money. So in the meantime, you need to decide what it is you really want to do about international students. However, that number is declining, and so something has to be done. Like right now, we have to be conscious of the fact that, because Carola, I think, can attest, and she faithfully sends us articles about the decline to keep in our heads that that's an issue for us. So This area is popular for out-of-state students. Some decisions need to be made about that. There was a moratorium some years ago. There's no advertising out-of-state at all anymore. That's an option, in the same way as leasing out the facilities is an option to bring in revenue. So that's the recommendation 3, that there needs to be some discussion and a decision around it, because I really don't think it's a good idea for you guys to argue about it all the time. It divides the board.
Amen.
You need to, now I'm doing Helen, but you need to talk about it and come to a decision together. That's my recommendation, about what you want to do as a board about international students and out-of-state students, or students don't live in this area. It's a controversial issue here, which surprised me, but it's an issue that I think as a board you need to deal with. Recommendation 4, now, Marcia had told me this, and I said, oh, we recruit older students. And then I inquired, and I found out that we don't, and that's how we got here. But I've talked to Vanessa, and she says they're beginning to do some things, and hopefully there will be more of a focus. But we need to do some research, get some census data on the age of the population, the educational levels, to see if that's even a worthwhile effort. Because apparently it's been assumed that just about everybody here has at least a bachelor's degree, unless he or she's in high school, and there's no need to recruit these people. I'm just saying. No, I shouldn't have done that. It's not professional. But we need to get the data on this to see if there's a market. 5, create metrics and benchmarks that provide guidance or ranges on staffing levels for all classes of employees. This is just always a real argument and difficult to do. Someone will look at the numbers and say, well, you have too many managers, you have too many classified, you have too many this, that, or the other. On what are you basing it? And there's a kind of suggested formula in the document for you to do that. So a college that has 16,000 students, but head count is not necessarily the measure. It may be what your FTS is. You need to figure out what you want to do. What is the appropriate number of managers for a college this size with the certain kind of organizational structure that you have? And I don't think did I put that in there? I think so. We need to look at the organizational structure as well. I am not certain that the people who work here can do that, because I don't think there's enough objectivity. There's too much personal interest. It's the thing about if there's no personal interest, there's no interest at all. Well, just eliminate the personal interest and have an outside person come in who's objective, cares about you, but will tell you the truth about how you ought to be organized and get people's feelings, survey and all that stuff. But these benchmarks need to be divided, because I've said there are too many this or that, but I'm just basing it on what I think. And for the way the college is organized, that may be the right number. But you have to have some system for determining what those right numbers are. Move from a what can we afford position on funding scheduled maintenance to an institutionalized mandate that requires certain levels of annual contributions. And that was one thing that surprised me about the college, the physical condition of it. It's something, I think you say, oh, it doesn't matter if we have, it's the kind of what's left. But if you're going to really be responsible about your facility, then that comes off the top every time, because you place a value on it. There's something biblical that says something like, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. You look at where your money goes, that's what you care about. You don't care a lot about your facilities. Recommendation 7, focus on diversifying revenue streams by meeting the demand for use of SBCC assets, specifically through facility use agreements. So we've started on this one anyway, because we know in Lindsay's department, we need somebody really focusing on the rental piece. This is a lovely facility, it's very attractive, lots of people want to do different kinds of things here. And so now, I think we approved the position last week, I think, And so it should go out, be advertised pretty soon, a 75% position that has to pay for itself through the rental fees. And the 8th recommendation, continue hiring freeze, which gets harder and harder every week. And negotiations of a retirement incentive, and consider the viability of a separation incentive for employees. So we're in the process of the retirement incentive. I don't know if the college has ever done a separation incentive or not. And continue the hiring freeze. The real challenge, and I included this in the document, in this, is that the college has so many grants, and all colleges have categorical funds, just millions of dollars in categorical funds, and most of that money they want us to use on employees. In many cases, the money doesn't last forever. It's just lasts for a certain period of time, and then we have those employees. It's difficult to come up with a mechanism that protects the college financially when those funds are discontinued. And that's how the college, that's one way in which the college has inherited quite a few employees, because we hire them through these categorical, state categorical funds or through grant funds. The money no longer exists, and then we still have these people because they become permanent and we own them. So there has to be a mechanism, and we've been talking about how to do that. It is not easy. So these things, we're hoping on the retirement incentive. We've got the math done that can work in favor of the college. And if it doesn't work, the college should not do it. Otherwise, it's a gift of public funds. Oops. Number 9, I guess I didn't finish. I did this myself, kind of. So number 9, I love this one. Hire an internal auditor and create a board audit committee. The college does not have an internal auditor. Most institutions, I mean, you need one. You need somebody kind of looking over. If you look at the second bullet, it says that that position serves as the eyes and ears of the senior leadership and the board. And the assigned work may cover any area of the college and be directed by the board's audit committee. You've been talking about a budget committee. I just think an audit committee is much more, they're both important, but that one is very important, especially if you have the internal auditor. That position would report to the board. You wouldn't see the person every day, of course, so there's a dotted line relationship to the president. But it's really critical because it checks for internal controls. The formal auditors, as in the report you received today, they come once a year and do what they do. The internal auditor is a permanent position, and it's important. And then the last one, and I did say that it would report to the board, but if you look at the first bullet, the internal auditor brings a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance processes. It's not just about money. The internal auditor also carefully examines processes, the way things are done, the steps that are taken, the redundancies, can look at the enrollment issues, check cash handling, all kinds of things like that, which are important to the college. And then 10, provide an ombudsperson services for employees and students. One of the things I intended to do and won't get to do, somebody else can do it, is to do the math on how much you spend annually on legal fees, but specifically on investigations. It's quite a bit. If you have an ombudsperson, that's a possible way of saving money because they can help resolve some of the disputes. All those investigations have to do with complaints between and among employees, employee to employee, employee to student, whatever, and they're very costly, as I think you well know. And you would probably save by hiring this position. It doesn't have to, there are different ways that you can do it, and I didn't check into all of that, but I think that would make a huge difference for the college. It would also improve the climate. 11, development of procedures for grant approval, tracking, implementation. You've talked about this already. You have this in your goals. You want these reports. We're saying here that we already have, the college already has a process for this. It is not followed, it's not used, and so we recommend using it. No grant should even be worked on without it being discussed at the college first. People just shouldn't go out and decide they want a grant. You need to determine whether it fits in with the goals of the college. That's why you have those strategic directions. If it doesn't fit, then it's something you don't do. Everything that happens in a college should be in alignment with what the plans for the college are. So there's a lot involved in this, but that's a first step, that people do that you receive reports as a board as to what grants are being pursued, how those are progressing, and when they end, how many positions are involved, and those kinds of things. And then finally, review the use of external consultants and contractors. You don't have a plumber as a college. You don't have that position. You don't have an electrician. Every time you have a problem, and because there's not a huge emphasis on maintenance of the buildings, we have a plumber every day, a plumbing company. We have an electrical company. If you have those employees, then they can do that work. So there needs to be a close look. And I asked Lindsay and James about this number I stuck in here, 400,000, and they are telling me that it's more than that. So if you hired some of these positions, you would say, that's just something that needs to be considered. I'm done. And I'm recommending it, all of this over like a 3-year period.
Dr. Benjamin, thank you
Yes.
so much for that. Not only is the document you prepared for us detailed and informative, it's really a fantastic document, but thanks to Trustee Aboud's suggestion that you give us a presentation, we now have you on videotape.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why I asked. That's why I asked.
So when we run into trouble, we can just pull it out and get right to what we need to hear from you. And I know that Dr. Goswami is certainly appreciative of the work you put in to this.
He saw it. I sent it to him along the way.
And he's told me that I think he basically agrees with, he will have an opportunity to learn for himself, but.
Right. I asked him to read it and to let me know if there was anything in there that he didn't support, and he supports it all.
That's wonderful. Any questions, comments, disagreements?
Couple of thoughts. I mean, one of the ones that I think when we have more time to look at this would be to expand our windows of looking at things, because there was a time when this college was the size that it is now. So as we, for example, set benchmarks, I think it informs us to look at what our employees were then and what they are now, and how that environment has changed. Similarly, that affects, I think, at least recommendation 2, recommendation 3, recommendation 8. We used to have in 2009-10, just to take an example, because I happen to have the data from Chancellor's office, our international student headcount was less than 4%. So we had a bubble. And when you look at the high point to now, it looks different when you look at a longer period. And I just think that helps us understand what our expectations are or should be looking forward. Second point, you spoke about the importance of having regular benchmarked contributions to our maintenance and construction. I absolutely agree with that. We've touched on it before here, and I think it's critical. At the same time, I think we need to get more of an understanding of what we have been doing, and I think what we have been doing is not realizing that we're spending down huge amounts of reserves to try to deal with our facility issues, and we're continuing to do that and taking on a new project. So I went back to 12, 13 through 18, 19 and looked at our budget, and just focusing on the actuals, the actual result at the end of the year as given to us, like in September when we approve the next budget, we have an unaudited actual. I looked at that. Our revenue for maintenance and construction over those 7 years was $10.4 million. We spent $34 million. That's a big spend down of our reserves. And I think we need to factor that into our thinking and understand how to put the budget on a more even keel in that area.
Thank you. Trustee Nielsen.
Is your microphone,
Again, I want to use this particular occasion to thank Dr. Benjamin. We asked for a plan. We asked to get a budget that was to work towards getting it to balance. Your recommendations hit the points. Now it's outlined. This is where we need to go, and these are things that we need to do or accomplish in order to meet that goal. If we can't do some of these, then we have to find it somewhere else. And I think if everybody works together and takes a positive attitude, I think we can do this. Earlier, the last topic was on efficiency and that 525 number. There are excellent junior colleges in the state of California that are at that number, and it's doable. It may be painful to to achieve that if we try to do it really fast, and maybe it's not a big emergency, but it's pretty darn close, and we need to take critical steps. You've outlined what we can do and what those goals are, and this is what we asked for, and you more than delivered. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're all in unanimity on our thank you for this work product. It is wonderful. Any other comments or questions before we move on to item 11.2? Item 11.2 is update as of October 31 on our unrestricted general fund. Welcome back, James.
All right, so back again. So this is a look at where we're sitting in the unrestricted general fund as of October 31st. So this is something we're looking to start bringing on a monthly basis. It's always going to be about a little over a month behind because it does take us a month to try and close out each individual month. I want to bring you guys numbers that are as close to finished as we can. So as you can, so I'll start with the revenues. Revenues are hard to look at this point in time. Our state revenues, that's still a huge unknown coming from the apportionment. So it's hard to say where that's going to be. Unfortunately, we had a webinar earlier this week from the Chancellor's office where they basically told us keep waiting. They are working in consultation with Department of Finance and a group of CBOs around the state on how they're going to come up with exactly what the rates are going to be. They still haven't given us an exact date, but they will have it sometime between now and February. Probably, I'm hoping at least somewhere in the middle of January, so we have a little bit more time to start planning as we go into budget season. They did fortunately give us a little bit of good news. If you remember, the state had a shortfall in revenue for total computational revenue last year. They are expecting that shortfall to be smaller than they originally projected, which would mean that we would probably get more revenue than we had planned for last year's, which will end up showing up in this year's budget. That's good news. They did not give us a dollar amount or even really an estimate of a dollar amount, although they did say they're trying to push out sometime in December at least a estimated recalculation revenue. That typically comes out at the end of February when we would get that information, right around February 20th. But they do want to give colleges an idea of what that's looking like, since there were a significant number of colleges that were impacted by that constrained revenue. So stay tuned. There's still a lot more on the revenue to come. So local revenues, it looks like it's trending very low if you look at like 22% of the way through the year when we're really 33%. Keep in mind, we don't get our property tax revenue, which goes in there, until November, December. So looking at that in October, that's going to naturally be extremely low. The other thing is that international enrollment fees are trending low, as Dr. Benjamin mentioned earlier, and I think we're fairly aware that the international students, that they're just not coming at this point. There's a lot of decline for a number of reasons. So right now, that is looking like it's trending about 12% below what we had in the budget, which is about $1 million. So that has not yet been changed in the adjusted budget. That's probably something that we're going to be looking at over the next couple months. Expenditures, overall, our expenditures are trending about where we would expect them to be right now. So salaries and benefits are pretty much right about where we would expect them to be. It's fairly early in the year, so we tend to get a lot more information as we get into November, December. So we'll be, again, like I said, bringing this again next month with the next month's worth of updated information. I think that's what I was looking to highlight. Does anybody have any questions?
Trustee Croninger.
I shared with Helen that we used to see these kinds of charts in fiscal committee, and they're helpful, but they're also very broad brush. And the things that interest me the most are the assumptions that we made when we went into the budget, and then changes that have happened since then. And I know some of these we're still waiting for revenue and all that. But I'm wondering, in some other areas where the assumptions show up, maybe you could comment on whether we've had any changes. Like, first off, there's a lot of discussion of formula changes, what they would give us, how, students can only be counted for one award a year and things like that. Anything new in that area?
So nothing has changed on the formula that was passed in the state budget. So that law is still the same. They're still figuring out how to get the rates that relate to that formula. So nothing's really changed there. They've given us definitions of the counts, which are basically just telling us what's in the law, which we've talked about when we did the budget presentation in September. So nothing there has changed. We're just unfortunately still waiting to know what that means for us. We need the Chancellor's Office to finalize their rates, and then we can take our counts and put that into play. So at this point, we don't have any information as far as the state revenue, which is our biggest chunk, where that's going to end up, other than what we put in our budget assumptions.
Okay. I'm just going through the assumptions as you presented them in September, but, or Lindsay, I forget. So you already mentioned we're down on international students. Did we spend the additional $300,000? Are we spending it?
So no. So the way our international marketing works, and I know Carola can probably explain this significantly better than me, but essentially we're sharing the recruitment costs. So if the students aren't coming, we're not spending that money on the students who didn't come.
Okay. Out of state, any trends there?
Looking at the revenues, it's trending in line with what we put in the budget.
Trending?
In line with what was in the budget.
Okay. We projected 1% decline in resident non-credit FTES? How's that looking?
Pretty close.
Okay. We had a series of budget reductions that brought us down to, well, it was the $4 million budget reduction between tentative and adopted. Any significant changes there?
Nothing that I would say is changing. Like I said, we're pretty much trending in line with the budget right now, so that would tell me that we're trending in line with those reductions. You know, like I said, it's still fairly early, but we'll be keeping a close eye on that.
Yeah, I mean, we did some pretty big things like reduce short-term hourly labor budget, $635,000, so we're trending on that plan?
Yeah, I haven't looked at that one. It is exactly, but overall, we're trending right about there.
Okay. Let's see. Enhanced non-credit FTES expected to increase 3%? Is that too soon to ask that one?
Yeah, I don't know that one off the top of my head.
Okay. And non-credit FTS anticipated increasing 12%. Still too soon?
Well, I gave
Yeah, you did give a
Yeah.
presentation.
So that was our best guess at that time.
Okay.
I'll know for sure in January
Okay.
what we did for fall.
Any read on property tax increase 3%?
So property tax, that's an estimate that ends up feeding into that total computational revenue. So that's going to end up, if property taxes either go up or down, that's going to get offset with our state revenues.
Okay, same as in the past?
Yeah.
Okay. State mandated reimbursements, no extra money there? Okay. SHOT Center funding went up, I think.
Yeah.
That was in the report.
Yeah.
And you just said the deficit for last year looks better for us.
Yeah, the deficit factor, the constrained revenue that we had, that's telling us that our recalculation revenue that comes in February will likely be better than what we were originally anticipating.
Okay. PERS and STIRS looking as projected.
Yeah, it's in line with all the
No
payroll.
excitement there.
It's not as bad as it was originally projected a few years ago.
Okay. I think that covers most of the big ones.
I have one follow-up question. So just so I understand, international students are down, therefore we don't have as much revenue from that source.
Correct.
But instead of spending more money to increase the number of international students, we're spending less money on advertising for.
Than what's in the budget, correct.
Yeah, okay,
It's a function of the number of students who come.
got it. I just get wondering that we should be spending more rather than less. Otherwise, it'll just be worse and worse and worse.
Well, we were going to increase recruitment by 300,000 thereabouts. So what you're saying is we're not doing that,
Yeah.
right?
If we don't get them.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't sure if we
Yeah.
were investing the recruitment anyway, which is.
But it's like a circular downward spiral,
Yeah.
as I see it. But that's for discussion later. Trustee Nielsen.
You just touched on a subject that I've addressed since I was a senior in college. I did a considerable
Is your
paper on that.
microphone on?
It's not on, now it's on. I did a considerable paper on advertising and its effects, and to only pay for what you get, it sounds really, really good, but it's like, okay, you're a department store chain, you had a really good Christmas season, so now you can spend lots of money for the winter white sales. But if you'd have spent more money in October, you might have had an even better holiday season. But instead, you wait for the income to be there so you can spend it. In this case, and what we're looking at here, if we need the revenue, and we do, and that's one place we have to go to get it, then we need to spend some money up front. not only pay for, based on the number that we got. We need to increase that number. That's the reason for the advertising. Otherwise, we don't really benefit at all from the change.
Looks like Corolla's going to come down. She can, like I said, she can explain the program
I don't like what you
significantly
just
better
said.
than-
We're only paying for what we got. How are we going to increase it if we do that?
Well, good evening, everybody. Yeah, I would like to clarify. We have definitely increased our outreach. So we have subscribed to online directories. We are doing more activities to actively recruit. But we have agreements with our marketing partners where we share in the cost, in their marketing costs for every student that is actually referred to us. So that cost is the cost that would not be expended. But we have increased, participation in online advertising. We are doing fairs, etc. So we have actually done a lot more and are doing more aggressive outreach.
Thank you. It's
You're
good to
welcome.
hear.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're doing that. Exactly when you started doing it, I don't know, and I don't need the details, but the thing is it's down 12%. Fix it, if you can. And if that takes a little bit of investment, then we need to make it.
I don't think it's entirely within our control.
No, it's not.
Okay, anything else? Okay, let's move on to next item. That would be strong workforce. Strong workforce, and presenters have been sitting here patiently waiting to get to their item. We appreciate that.
So tonight we have a presentation, I think the first since the Strong Workforce Program initiated in the state of California. And so we'll be hearing from Dr. Alan Price and Luann Swanberg, who are going to talk about this incredibly important statewide initiative that's designed to grow more people into career educational fields with more direct impact. And so they're going to give you an overview of how the program works and then what it's done here locally and then regionally. So I'd like to introduce, I think, is Luann starting us off? Yes. I'd like to introduce Luann Swanberg, who serves as the director chair of our regional consortium, and we host that consortium here at the institution. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome. I'm really, I think we're all eager to hear about this. I know there's a lot more that we could be doing along the lines of what you're going to talk about. So,
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Benjamin, President Miller, and other board members. As Pamela mentioned, my name is Luann Swanberg, Director and Chair of the South Central Coast Regional Consortium. I've been doing this work for a while in our region. Our region is an 8-college region, primarily made up of practitioners, faculty, administrators in career technical education and economic and workforce development. And really our role as a consortium is to assist the state in implementing these statewide initiatives. And the one we're talking about today is the California Community College Strong Workforce Program. And really, it's the ultimate goal is more and better CTE and to serve the populations that you've been discussing here today and to fill middle-skilled jobs, which there's a great demand for middle-skilled jobs. Oh, that would be helpful. Thank you. So I mentioned this before, and really getting people into living wage work. In 2016, the governor and the legislature approved the Strong Workforce Program for community college, and it was designed as ongoing funding for career and technical education. It was $248 million starting in 16-17. In 2019, they initiated and approved the Strong Workforce Program for K-12 community college, or K-12 strong workforce, and that's again for ongoing funding. Because as most of you know, a lot of the career tech areas are more expensive to keep going. And we talked earlier about the nursing programs and some regulatory issues around how many people or how many students to instructors. that kind of thing. So, and with the K-12 Strong Workforce is really it's brand new. We have our first round of grantees doing their work now, and it's really to strengthen that connection between the K-12s and the community college and or any post-secondary, but to build those pathways to fill those middle-skilled jobs. So dual enrollment is very important, articulation. So my role, or our role as the consortium, is we get the money. The money comes from the chancellor's office. We have a local share dollars. This is on the community college side. So 60% of the dollars go to the local districts, Santa Barbara being one of them, and Alan will talk further about the programs that they've invested here at Santa Barbara City College. And then the regional share, it was 40%. So there's 7 regions around the state. We're one of them, and we're the South Central Coast region. So on our side, Alan will be talking about his side, the local side, but we have been getting approximately $5 million per year to our region, that we have a regional governance structure that makes decisions about where that funding goes. Our CEOs are involved in the region. These are the 8 colleges that are in our region. It's basically developing this regional ecosystem of resources and support for the colleges as they invest and work within their CTE and workforce and economic development programs at their colleges. And again, with Strong Workforce Program, it's really about employment, it's about completion, it's about living wage jobs, both on the K-12 side and on the community college side. So we have, Alan will be talking about the local projects. We have regional projects and this is an example, and I thought it'd be important to use an example from Santa Barbara City College, which is a great example because this project, this is a regional project. All 8 colleges in the region have supported it. It is housed out of this, or it is led by Jeanette Chan, who we've already spoken about in the School of Extended Learning. And it is modeled after the Career Skills Institute and the digital badging. And they've created a badge for our region for career strategists. So 4 colleges, or actually 4 districts out of our 6 districts participate. And really what our regional projects do is develop communities of practice so you can share curriculum. In this particular project, there's partnership with Linked Learning and LinkedIn, really to provide digital badges that can be loaded to LinkedIn profiles, which are hugely important in employment and increasing employability. And then with the end goal of this particular project and many of our regional projects is to increase employment and wage gains in living wage jobs. And I know it's important in not just the Strong Workforce metrics, but in also the student-centered funding formula, the Vision for Success, and we're bringing in guided pathways. So it's about aligning a lot of these initiatives through career and technical education and economic and workforce development. But really where the real work happens is here with Alan. I'm going to introduce my colleague here, Alan Price, because that's where the real work happens. We can work at facilitating the consortium, building these community practice, collaboration, and sharing among the region and providing resources to the colleges in the region, but the real work happens at the campuses. So I'm going to turn this over to Alan to continue on the local side of Strong Workforce.
How do I know I'm preceding James? I need to lower this a little bit. Dr. Benjamin, esteemed Board of Trustees, thank you for the opportunity to come up and speak a few minutes on career technical education and the Strong Workforce Program. It's been such a godsend to this college and to the programs. But before I jump into my few comments, I do want to take this time to say to Dr. Benjamin, on behalf of myself and the divisions that I represent, as well as Marcy, who it appears has stepped out, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You have made a positive difference to this college, and you certainly will be missed. So, as Luann has mentioned, we have the fortune of having the Strong Workforce Program that came in 2016. And in the higher levels, it's approximately 248, and I will come back to that number and put a little asterisk by it, 248 million. That's subdivided down into 7 regions, and in our case, our region is a collection of 8 community colleges. That breaks down, and I'll look at and share with you the specifics of the dollars that come into our college, but it breaks down by a 60-40% split. 60% of the money that comes down to the region is intended to support the local level. 40% is intended to support broader outreach in supporting the efforts of the region, which is really looking at it from a collection of 2 or more colleges. But before I go into the details of Strong Workforce, I think it's important to just take a step back, just to say a few words, and to provide context to really what career technical education is. There's misconceptions about career technical education, and if you ask, what is career technical education, various thoughts come to mind, and it's very simple. It's really educational pathways that have a career focus. We as an institution provide the knowledge, skills, and abilities to allow a graduate to quickly step into an entry-level career. And specifically to Santa Barbara City College, it represents support of about 25% of our population. CTE programs also represent, if we look at the students themselves, opportunity of support for a large number of underrepresented and marginalized groups. The students that we really are intending to reach out and to be available for, we see in our CTE programs. Whether we look at an older Hispanic male population in our construction programs, single mothers in our certified nursing assistants, veterans, we can go on. But we also see within CTE a support for our local students. 40% of our students that come from the College Promise program into Santa Barbara City College step into a career technical education program. If we look at a program like automotive technology, 70% of the students that come into the program are coming locally. We also, through career technical education, we are the premier workforce training provider to our employer base. I'm very proud of Santa Barbara City College and the programs that we have to offer. In fact, we have over 60 certificate degree programs, and many of those provide a pathway that's transferable, and a lot of our students continue on for higher educations at the 4-year and on. If we look at the type programs, we have it basically kind of grouped into 4 divisions. Our business division, managed by Dean Corolla Smith, includes programs such as business, finance, marketing, computer information systems, international business, real estate. If you look at the health and human services side, which is the division that I manage, we're looking at programs that run the gamut of the various nursing, whether it's associate degree nursing, CNA, vocational nursing, cancer information management, health information technologies, radiography, addictive disorders counseling, cosmetology, which I will say is under the leadership of Dr. Marino, administration of justice, early childhood education, and emergency technician. If we look at programs that are more the creative type, this is managed and supported by Dean Priscilla Mora. We have programs in animation, photography, film, journalism, media arts. If we look at the technologies division, which is another division that I oversee, we see, again, a wide swath of programs, including automotive, computer networking, construction, drafting, interior design, environmental horticulture, culinary arts, marine diving, and water science. And I recognize I've gone through this list quickly, and I could talk about specifically any of these programs, but I felt it was important. There's 2 takeaways, really. One, the breadth of programs that we have. Regardless of the student interest and the employer interest, there's a good chance we have a career technical education program that would fit. But also to recognize that career technical education is often more than what we think of as the trades, whether it's construction, it's automotive, it's culinary. It spans over to what a number of people consider the non-traditional or I should say the traditional disciplines, that being business, journalism coming to mind. Those are CTE programs. Now, regardless of the program themselves, we have a challenge, and it's been brought up that career technical education programs, they're expensive. The infrastructure that supports them is demanding. It requires more than just a standard classroom. But due to the changes in technologies that often occur, we have a faster refresh cycle in terms of the instructional tools that we provide our students that we must undergo. This cost. And the state of California has recognized that cost, and hence they have provided through the Strong Workforce Program an opportunity to mitigate that cost. And they've set it up front. We want you as a community college to bring in more CTE students or improve the quality of the CTE students that you have, improving the quality in terms of a wage gain change from the time they start to the time they finish, or produce a graduate that can meet a regional living wage. And they're doing that because there is a gap in the middle skilled jobs that are throughout the state of California. It's only projected to get worse in tune of, at least the number that has been thrown out, 1 million by 2022. And a lot of the CTE programs are felt would be a pathway to reduce that gap in employment. For us at Santa Barbara City College, we've been fortunate. If we look at over the last 3 years, we're currently in our 4th year of Strong Workforce. We've been receiving approximately $1.5 million for local funds and an additional $300,000 for local regional projects. Now, I have to put a caveat to this. This is what we have received. While Strong Workforce is legislatively driven, we will receive some money. A question of how much is dependent year by year. And in fact, coming into this fiscal year, early governor's budget, we were projecting a 30% cut in Strong Workforce. But the funds that we received this year have been met with one-time funds. Thereby, a question still remains of what we will receive next year. For the money that we have received, we as a college have prioritized our investments. And we recognized where our gaps are, primarily being in our infrastructure. Many of the programs, CE2 programs that we have, the spaces, the learning spaces that we have available to support the students, were outdated. The equipment needed to be refreshed and updated. So we have spent, I would say, approximately 60 to 70% of the funds that we've received over the last 4 years, primarily in the infrastructure side, and less on, and not to say that it's not important, but less on the support side and primarily in the personnel. And Dr. Benjamin has mentioned it, and she's absolutely right. We made a conscious decision not to front load heavily on the employee, recognizing that Strong Workforce is potentially soft money, but that doesn't mean that we haven't hired. We've hired a full-time allied health lab coordinator who works in the front lines with our nursing staff. We will be, and when the college is in a position to move forward to, again, hire, we're looking to bring in a full-time person to help on the curriculum side as a CTE curriculum specialist that will be there to support the movement of new curriculum, CTE curriculum, and modified curriculum, as well as programs, to the state. And we're also looking to bring in a full-time classified employee who will work as a CTE internship coordinator and job placement specialist. This person will be working with our frontline business partners to develop relationships and also hopefully job opportunities that will help students to place into. Now, within the infrastructure space, some of the more recent projects that we've completed, there's a list here. It's auto, marine diving. These are a list of programs. Our nursing lab, early childhood education, and our media arts and technology. And if the old adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words, I would say that's correct, but I would also add that being immersed in the space is worth a million. So with that, the next few slides are a showcase, a pictorial showcase of some of the work and the investments that we made. By all means, they're not inclusive. It doesn't indicate all that we've done, but I hope you get a sense. What we're looking at here is the Allied Health Nursing Lab. And prior to our investment, this lab was outdated. We had broken beds, we had mismatched equipment. To give you an example and to kind of provide context, in a nursing environment, a hospital environment, crash carts are used, supply carts are used. These are the things that are wheeled into a room. They have the supplies that are needed to support. We were using the large Craftsman toolboxes, the red boxes with the wheels. I mean, certainly they're functional, but it's actually an embarrassment for a nursing program. They're all gone. We've invested, remodeled, new beds, new furniture, new equipment, everything to match what our students will see at such places like Cottage Hospital. And also, and to showcase, and I'm proud of it, 2 major investments in the tune of $200,000, 2 simulation mannequins, an infant and adult. What these do is they allow our nursing team to simulate medical scenarios to give our students practice before they have to step into the real world. In our marine diving program, which is really a gem for Santa Barbara City College, and I would also add for the nation, we're the only community college in the nation that has a program like this. Again, outdated space. Over the summer, we finished a complete renovation of the exterior, new paint. In the interior spaces, we replaced locker rooms that support our students. Prior, our lockers were rusty, missing doors, wouldn't shut. We've repaired major pieces of equipment, this being a 30-ton crane that we use to hoist students in and out of a simulation tank, as well as we've updated a number of pieces of equipment used in the program. I will also highlight that prior to the investments that we made in marine diving, the college had to incur a reoccurring cost every year for rental equipment. The equipment was just too expensive to purchase, thereby we had to rent it. We no longer have to do that. Strong Workforce has allowed us the opportunity to purchase the needed equipment. That saves approximately $10,000 a year. Our newest lab that we just rolled out this summer under the leadership of Dr. Moore is a complete renovation of our media arts and technology labs. This lab supports 3 programs: media arts, graphic design, and film and television production. What we did is, utilizing the services of an architect, we reconfigured the space. We took a large space, converted it into 2 smaller labs, which allows us more efficiencies in terms of our scheduling. But we also created an open work area for our students as well as we updated a lobbyway. And I have to say, it's a beautiful space. Just by the vibrant colors, we know it's our creative types that love to be in there. And the feedback that I'm hearing from students is they appreciate all that we've done. A major investment that's taken approximately 3 years to complete, that being we've had to time it to have the least impact on students, is a complete remodel of our automotive services and technology labs. In this case, we completely remodeled 2 labs and 2 classrooms. We completely touched everything: new paint, new flooring, which is chemical resistant. We replaced vehicle hoist, which were over 40 years old. And we also added new toolboxes and various storage that the programs need. To kind of give you a context and kind of exemplify where we were and where we are now with this program, I'll give you an example that it's really, I shake my head on, but it is the reality that we face with automotive technology. We, prior to our investments, did not have sufficient resources to support our students. Sufficient resources as simple as basic tools that you would expect an auto program to have. We had a limited supply, so what instructors were struggling through were students would have to often wait to be able to have a specific hand tool to be able to do the work that they were doing. No more. That's completely done. We've renovated everything. We've structured the lab such that we have various automotive service bays like you'd find in a dealership, and in front of every service bay we have procured and purchased exact duplicate equipment bay by bay by bay. So now what we're finding, and this is the feedback that we're hearing from our faculty, students are now completing their work faster, and they're often waiting to do more. So what our faculty are responding with is they're creating more. They're creating more learning exercises. They're expanding on their curriculum, which is only going to have a benefit to our students. They'll have more skills, more knowledge, more abilities that they can carry over to the employment base. Last but not least is the work that we completed this summer with our Orfila Early Learning Center. This is a space that supports our early childhood education program. This is a space where we have student teachers working with toddlers and preschool children, specifically about 50 of them that come from faculty, staff, students, as well as our community. And this is a space that was put into operation in the early 70s, and it hadn't been touched since the early 70s. While I love that decade, I appreciate the music, I appreciate the movies, I didn't appreciate the color schemes, and one of the things that we quickly got rid of was the oranges and the olive greens inside by replacing all flooring, all paint, reconfiguring the furnitures themselves. We also made major investments on the external of the building. We repainted the exterior. We also replaced and repaired a leaky roof. We also dealt with a number of HVAC issues, as well as we completely redid the back play area that services and supports our students and our children. We're talking rust removal, repainting, as well as putting in new pour and play. And if you don't know what that is, I certainly didn't before the project began. This is that squishy stuff that kids step on when they're playing in a play set. Ours was 30 years old, ours was ripped, ours was a potential safety hazard. It's no more, it's gone, it's been replaced. Now, if I stopped here and said, we've done enough, I would say it's something to be proud of. But we have done so much more in such a short time. In the last 3 years, we've been a partner in building out the new Paul Mitchell building, partner being that we've replaced in a tune of over $100,000 the salon stations. We've also partnered with the Jack and Julie Nadell Foundation and the generous donation that they provided in building out the new BC lobby that supports our business students. We've expanded and started the replacement in a number of learning spaces, whether it's in film production with new equipment, culinary, this is specific to the JSB, new stoves, new ovens, providing resources to our students through library databases, conducting 2 environmental scans on 2 different programs to try to understand best practices, which we'll then use to come back and improve our programs on. Course redesign. I do want to stop on Chromebooks for students. This is a project that Dean Rodriguez is tackling this year, and it was triggered by a study that we as a college did that looked at a technology gap between some of our students. That being, some have access to technology at home, some do not. And there was a conclusion, a possible conclusion, that it may have an impact on their ability to be successful academically. So what we did through Strong Workforce is we procured well over 100, maybe close to 200 Chromebooks that we now provide for long-term checkout to our CTE students, and that just started this semester. So we're optimistic that's going to have success, and we're going to be tracking the outcomes as we go forward. We've done so much, but we have more to do. In 2019 and 20, we're going to continue forward with our infrastructure plans in improving the infrastructure and the learning spaces that we have for our students. We're going to be looking at improving the photography lab, our environmental horticulture program. We're going to be touching the computer networking lab. We're going to be building out a new teaching kitchen for culinary. And I have to add, specific to culinary, we have a 5-star program. We have an outstanding program. Many of our graduates are working at such places as the Bacara, Bouchon's, Winecast. They're getting an excellent education. But our teaching lab, and this was evident this academic year, our teaching lab is a 2-star lab. We're going to change that. We're going to make it into a 5-star lab by upgrading all the equipment and the spaces that the students learn in. And we're going to continue that as well with our radiography and imaging sciences program, which we have already begun in changing out a number of the equipment, moving that program from the old technology, the old digital films, to current technology. I do want to end on CTE tutoring. This is recognizing that tutoring provides an excellent support for helping our students to be academically successful. But the question is, what is effective tutoring specifically to CTE? We're going to study that. We're going to conduct an environmental scan of best models that are perhaps showcased in the state, the best practices that they have. We're going to take that information back and we will benchmark it to our own practices with the intent of learning and improving, and then providing the infrastructure if needed and the support if needed to help us to get better. Now, if you were to ask me, are you successful with the investments that you've made for CTE? I would say yes. I would also say the state of California says the same thing. And in 2017 and 18, the state of California looked at all CTE programs at all 114 colleges, and they benchmarked those programs against 3 metrics. One was a pre-post wage change. They also looked at it from a perspective of graduates that meet a living wage, a regionally living wage, in this case 70% or more. And they also looked at a construct of a field of study that, and specifically too, 90% or more of the graduates are employed in the field of study that they undertook. I'm happy to report that Santa Barbara City College, 13 of our programs received a Bronze Star. This indicates that those programs, the programs that are listed, met at least one of the metrics that the state was looking at. And specifically automotive technology, horticulture, banking and finance, business administration, marketing, alcohol and controlled substances, computer graphics, graphic art and design, administrative justice, culinary arts, hospitality, all showed an increase in pre- and postgraduate wage change above 50%. And specifically to cosmetology, we saw, and they were measured on, that 92% of the graduates from that program found a job within their field of study. In the case of health information technology, 78% of the students that graduated from that program met a regional living wage. For programs that met 2 of the 3 metrics, they received a Silver Star, and specifically Santa Barbara City College, we had 5 programs that won that award. We're looking at accounting, vocational nursing, diagnostic, medical sonography, and computer information systems, all showing an increase in wage earnings, as well as all showing meeting the minimum or exceeding, in these cases, the regional wage. And to highlight one program specifically, if we look at accounting, 87% of their graduates increased their earnings, while also 76% of the students obtained a regional wage. In the case of drafting a CAD, we see an increase in wage earnings by 70%, but we see 100% of those students finding jobs specific to their field of study. Now, for programs that met 3 of the metrics, they received a Gold Star. And we had 2 programs that received Gold Stars from the state of California in 2017 and 18, and that is in radiography, 156% increase in earnings, 100% of the students attained a regional living wage, and 100% of the students found jobs specific to their field of study. Nursing, and specifically to our associate degree nursing program, 229% increase in wage change. 92% of the students obtaining a regional living wage, and 100% of the students finding employment within their field of study. I'm proud of the success that we've made, but this represents a lot of hard work, a lot of energy, a lot of dedication from faculty, from the classified staff that support, from the administration that works behind the scenes, but also from you, the Board of Trustees, because you're telling our story to the community. You're sharing the wonderful work that we're doing. And I hope tonight, with a few of the words and the comments that I've shared, that you'll be able to continue that story as we move forward. So with that, I would like to again say thank you. Thank you for giving me a few minutes, myself and Luann, a few minutes to share with you the wonderful work that's going on in career technical education, and also some highlights of the Strong Workforce Program. But I also want to use this opportunity, and I'm also mindful of the time, that we are here to answer questions.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that presentation. I not only learned some things I didn't know we were doing, but learned about all the great success we're achieving. This is such an important area. I just have one question. I don't quite know how to ask it, but what do we do to make sure that we're matching up what the local economy wants, the employers, what they need, and what we're doing, so that we're not training students where the jobs don't exist, but training students to fill jobs that are wanted locally. How do we monitor that match?
That's a very good question, and really what you're asking is, how do we know we're offering the right programs to the right employers at the right time? And it's difficult. It requires a constant environmental scan of where the employment is going. And although I didn't mention it, we were fortunate enough through regional dollars to hire a full-time institutional researcher for our college, who part of her responsibilities is to do exactly what you described, to be the lens out to our labor market and to look at what are the jobs in demand, how do they compare to the programs that we offer, and then to give us that information back so we can then self-reflect and if needed, to make change. We augment that question through regular industrial advisory board meetings that every program is required, every CTE program is required to hold at least once a year. And this is an opportunity for our employment base, our industry partners, to come back to our college and to sit down and to share with what they're seeing in the front lines. And again, it becomes one more assessment point that we add into the whole review process to ask the question, where are we today and where do we need to be tomorrow? It's tough. It's a lot of hard work.
Thank you. Appreciate that, their response. Other questions? Trustee Nelson?
I wanted to say thank you. I could.
Your
It's
microphone.
getting late, and I don't need to ask a lot of questions. What I did want to say is thank you, because you did indicate, or did mention that the trustees here are representatives in the community, and we need this kind of information and reinforcement of what we know, even if we already knew it. To see this is really critical, because it helps us, it drives us, gives us more to share, what to talk about. And, please come back and keep coming back and give us the ammunition so that we can pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Gallardo?
This was amazing. Thank you. And I would love to just sit down with you more, because I don't want to ask all the million questions. And I know Melissa's been awesome, because I'll email her things. I guess my question more specifically is, it seems like with our academies locally, our pathways in our high schools, I don't know, I'm not going to say it seems, it is. So it's us, it's the community, it's the parents, and so everyone has their own 501c3, and my kid is in two, construction tech and computer science, and now he's like, how do I do both? And my daughter's now computer science, thanks to Dean Evans and all the wonderful world that I've been learning about, and I never thought that my daughter would do that, and so here I am, so now we're on their board and giving them money, but it seems like there's so much we can do, because there's hubs in every academy with motivated men and women that want to see this become even better. And so I guess my question is, how do we strengthen that and not necessarily get into the bureaucracy of K-12 and all of that, but there has to be a way where I think a lot of the work that we're doing in our high schools can support this work and vice versa. And somehow I envision just like one pot of money, because like as a parent, I have to pay X thousands of dollars for just the one academy to run, and then trade art supports the construction tech, so I don't have to pay as much for that, but I can give trade art. And then I'm here, so I feel like my time and money all ends up at City College. So there's just so much, I think, work that we can do around this, and there's so much motivation, because I don't think that career technical education anymore is like, oh, you're not going to college. If anything, it's like this is the way to get into college and get a career and get into the field of choice. And kids are graduating with AAs now, or exploring careers that they never even thought they could even explore. So I just want to say thank you, and it's just awesome, all of this that you guys are doing, and Melissa, and the funding source got clarified. So I would love to, in 2020, connect more and just learn more. And if you've ever had to go to Cottage Hospital, you know that you need a qualified nurse. So.
But let me, and thank you, let me just certainly share with you one point. And it's really a point of view of optimism and excitement of not necessarily where we are today, but where we might be tomorrow, and that is with respect to K-12. This is our second year that the Strong Workforce Program is now at the K-12 level. And part of the driver at the K-12 level is to build out, reinforce, strengthen, however you want to look at pathways from K-12 to community colleges. So I'm optimistic that where we are tomorrow will be in a better place of having clear guided pathways from 5th grade on through City College, as well as new pathways that perhaps we haven't thought about, and now we'll have an opportunity as a community college to come back and sit with our high school partners and look at building that relationship and bridge.
Trustee Croninger.
Thank you from me, too. This is an area that I know from the feedback I get is beloved in the community. They really are interested in these kinds of classes and the careers that students can achieve through them. I also, like Veronica, would appreciate an opportunity just to chat briefly off of this sort of scenario. I had a really interesting conversation with an MD who is a leader in his field about, and follows artificial intelligence. And that represents another aspect of what Robert was asking about, which is how do we know where we're going in the future and what jobs will disappear and what jobs will remain. And so we were talking about that, and I think that's a very interesting area.
Any other questions, comments? I just have one thing to say. I think as I heard you talk about matching up the economy with what we're doing, it must be an extraordinarily difficult task, because you identify what's needed now, and then you got to make changes, perhaps changes here that won't see fruition for several years, and then the economy changes by the time we've done it. So it is I recognize it's a very challenging task to try to keep that alignment going.
It's tough, but it is fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Seems like a natural transition to strategic enrollment management update.
I'm going to be very brief because tonight seems like all roads simply led here, and it was very thematically well organized. And it's great to get to follow after a conversation where you can see how Strong Workforce is all about this larger definition of enrollment management, thinking really prudently and intentionally and consciously about all of these parts. And even some of the positions that were described that we hired, curriculum specialists, internship people, research folks who help us think about environmental scans, all of that is that work. So when we're most nervous about enrollment management, we're thinking about scaling down schedules, right? We're thinking about adding students and making instructional spaces more challenging. Enrollment management is about building the right schedule at the right time that meets the greatest needs and drives the future of the academic project forward, and it meets all of the student and the community needs. So we're working on a strategic enrollment management committee that is really focused first on learning more about what those strategies look like. I included for you a couple of electronic links that are great resources. So the Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative has done a lot of work in strategic enrollment management to help community colleges. Over the last 5 years, this is a very deep and growing field. And that's a wonderful resource if you take a look at the roadmap. We use that as a basis for some of the ways that we've come back to kind of train and get more focused. I was allowed to use some resources this summer to be able to bring a consultant in to work with the deans, both on the student services and the academic affairs side. We sent 3 managers off to the Strategic Enrollment Institute over the summer, and then we brought that information back as we designed a committee to really support some early work that happened in 2017, 2018 about the abbreviated Strategic Enrollment Management Plan. That was a plan that got started and it set a target, and it didn't yet get fleshed out to be what is all of the planning work that needs to be in place in order to move everything forward, from what's the earliest piece of marketing and outreach that we do to a variety of audiences, to reducing all of the barriers that make it difficult to actually enroll and register in the institution. And when you listen to this, you know that we're talking about something that sounds a lot like guided pathways. So what are the strategies to make sure that where students land is where they're going to stick, and that they're in a place where they can actually go all the way through programs that are well mapped. So one of the nice things to hear was from Patricia Stark talking about that work that department chairs and department faculty are doing to really think about the offerings that they want to have really reinforced for students, and how to set up a pathway through a degree and a certificate that's meaningful. And as we do that, we'll get closer to a place where we actually offer a fully guaranteed schedule. So an ideal goal for a community college our size is to be able to publish a schedule that says, we don't cancel classes. You won't need to worry about your capstone course not making because it'll be under-enrolled. If it's part of a program plan that's appropriate, that's agreed upon, that course will be offered when you should be able to expect it. So students who come in, commit to that time period with us, will be able to complete in the time period that they understand, along with those supports from our educational support services, faculty, and staff who make that all possible. So that's a lot of words in a pretty quick space because I think it's late tonight. We're working as a committee to develop the component parts that will flesh out that plan, and when we get closer to that, I'll come and do a fancier presentation where you can learn through some of these pieces. But we've been developing, we're revisiting older dashboards that we've used at the institution, and we're bringing them into a more current state to be aligned with the student-centered funding formula, the statewide initiatives. We're developing tools for faculty to learn about and think about how FTS and apportionment actually work. And then we're thinking about the pieces of all of these initiatives, plans, new ideas to be braided back together so that we're doing things in a more elegant and simple way rather than lots of efforts that happen across the institution. We're trying to bring people together more collaboratively to do that work, and we're really hopeful that this cross-constituent committee is going to be able to help get us there, that kind of planning. And you can see its role in the strategic directions, you can see its role in the exit report from Dr. Benjamin, and all of those parts that are really working. And before I finish up, I want to take this moment to thank Dr. Benjamin for her work and leadership, not only on these kinds of places where she's helped open up uncomfortable conversations and given us leadership, but working with her, I told her yesterday, has been like being part of a master class in academic leadership, and I am eternally grateful for what that opportunity has been, and it has hugely helped us in educational programs, so thank you very much. Questions or thoughts about strategic enrollment management to date?
I just want to make sure we caught what you said. If it's part of a capstone, you will get the class.
When we build that, when we get that schedule all the way done, that's the end goal of what that outcome should look like.
That's our 2-minute elevator speech.
Yes. Yes.
That's also a place to help faculty buy into what that commitment looks like, so that they're able to offer what they think is the most streamlined, effective, and inspirational set of offerings they can have, with pieces that they know that can be predictable for the students they're serving.
That's great.
Any questions? Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
.5 facilities, 2019 facilities master plan.
Good evening again. Somehow I have the luck of being here at the very end, again. Seems to be my knack. To present a 100-page long document, you may be discouraged. I'm not going to go through it page by page unless you want me to. I'm going to leave that to the board to do. So tonight is actually quite a momentous occasion for my team because we have been working on the facility master plan document for a while now. I think I'm embarrassed to say I think we almost hit the 3-year mark that it took us to complete it. We had some hiccups along the way for various reasons, but we made it through those, and we now have a final document for review by the board tonight. All of the different constituency groups have reviewed it and worked through the process over the last couple of years, provided input along the way. So it's been a really good, inclusive process, and we're happy with the document. It really met our needs, our goals, was to keep it a readable document, a short document, an affordable document, which it did turn out to be, stayed on budget with the plans for how much it would cost us to do. And the document really focused on our core buildings for our main campus and also Schott and Wake. It did include all 3 of our campuses. And the goals were to outline some of the major deficiencies in the buildings and what we need to do in terms of focusing on which buildings need to be either replaced or have major upgrades over the coming years. Let's see if there's anything else I really wanted to cover. Something that always is a part of the facility master planning is the integration, all of the different documents that we have throughout the district. We had a lot of wonderful planning documents that we were able to add into this document, obviously stemming from our educational master plan. We had our district sustainability plan, we have an aesthetic design standards plan, we have 5-year capital outlay plans. All of these plans came together to help us in crafting this plan. And going forward, if there's a point in time where we update our educational master plan, anything that we're updating in the educational master plan, we'll want to then update our facilities master plan to integrate any changes in programs, classroom needs, special facility needs. For academic purposes, we'd want to come back and update the FMP again. So I think that covers it. I don't know if you guys have specific questions, if you got a chance to read it. This is like the 20th version, 20th draft, finally coming to the end here.
I like,
Questions,
no,
comments?
I mean, compliment, I like that it's, the readability is clean, and the fact, I mean, you go with the pretty picture, and then in the end, like, you can go with just like the square footage and go more, but, I mean, if and when we do go for a bond, I think that this is going to be very useful.
Hopefully.
I note the absence of, I see our map with the configuration of 3 campuses. For a number of years, we've talked about developing a smaller campus in Carpinteria to take care of a number of educational opportunities for them. We note that when they go to the Schott Center, they begin the courses, and within a couple of weeks, they terminate that effort because it's just too far to drive. So has any consideration been given that that would begin the search for a facility?
I haven't worked on something like that in the recent history. I've heard about it. I know you've worked with the board and the board president on that. I'm thinking that's something that would really be driven from the educational master plan if we were looking at having programs in Carpinteria. I don't know, Dr. Benjamin, do you have thoughts on that?
Well, we do have programs in Carpinteria. We use the local high school, but that's in terms of rooms available for that purpose. So we were looking for something more permanent.
That's the first time I've heard.
I'll take it up with Dr. Goswami.
It makes sense, Peter.
Yeah. No, it's important.
It does.
Especially like, I don't know, like ECE and just some of those fields that
A
they.
center, you're talking about having a center there.
A center, and it doesn't have to be a large center. And in fact, I would suggest that we test those waters with a rented facility before we actually invest in anything long-term. I get calls from constituents a lot. Well, maybe not a lot. Maybe every month I'll get 3 or 4 calls. You know, I want to take a course in history, or I want to take a course in Spanish language, and I want to take it in Carpinteria. And we're not providing that service. So sometimes Carpinteria feels sort of like the lost child. I'm here to remind us all that the Community College District includes Carpinteria.
As evident in a sitting trustee right here.
Well, the map sort of excludes Carpinteria. I'd like to push it in a little bit more.
We'll make sure it's there next time.
That's good.
Yeah.
And we should consider what you're talking about.
Yes, we should.
I think,
I mean, you can always test it out by offering some courses, as you said,
Yeah.
a rented facility or something. And we haven't done that.
We were looking, I think, only 2 years ago.
Well, we do offer continuing education courses there, but we haven't done something
No credit.
more than that.
we don't have a facility in Goleta either, although,
Yes, you do.
well, no,
Yes, we
it's
do.
in Nolita.
It's
The-
part of Goleta.
It's in Nolita.
Close enough.
But it's close enough that I don't have a good argument for, you're going to get Carpinteria construction. we
So
get-
you're proposing, Peter, we amend this plan and put a placeholder on page 113,
Yeah.
the future of Carpinteria.
So I do have a question, though, another outside of Carpinteria. So if and when we go for a bond in 2020, and we start to write what we want, what we're asking for a bond to do, is this the first document we're going to look at? Will this provide us at least the beginnings of that information?
It can, yes, that's the purpose of it.
Yeah.
But sometimes, depending on the age of the document, you have to do more. But if it's outdated, or if the population has changed, or there are any changes in the district, you might have to add or delete things.
Got it.
But there's a whole, well, other members have been through the whole process you go
Yeah.
through to determine what your focus will be.
Right. I know there's a lot of other information that goes
Yeah,
into
but
that, but this is a basic document of information. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I fully support Peter's concern. I think Carpinteria needs to have some attention there, and starting with a leasing seems like a good way to begin that process. For me, a bigger issue is that this should be a living document, and that's part of its living, that we continue to update it and improve it. I know you have done a ton of work on this, Lindsay, and it's been a very long project. I still think the board needs to have a priorities discussion. We haven't had that yet. I would hope that when we do that, this document or something can be incorporated into it that will show not just the number of classrooms, but the number of students who use those buildings. I think this is something our community wants to know if we ever get to a bond discussion. Those priorities are, generally speaking, classrooms, students, and so forth. So knowing that in a clear way would help. And thank you for all that work.
Yes, thank you. I'm sure, but for the late hour, we'd have a lot more questions for you.
I could have gone through it page by page.
So was it the PLUMP, Lindsay, the Program Land Use Master Plan? That was done, that kind of sunset itself? or
That was a part of our facility master
Yeah.
planning process, and that document was used to help create this document. It's referenced, there's a page on, I forgot what page it is, but there is a page on Plump and what was done with Plump and how we utilize that information for this facility master plan. But as you may recall, Plump recommended some very serious changes to our programs, moving things to completely different locations, and we decided not to move forward with those types of changes. Our document was more of a focus on looking at what facilities we have and what needs we have. We have very aging buildings, deferred maintenance needs, things like that, and less on programmatic changes.
It may go without mention, but it shouldn't. We mentioned a little while ago the levels of plumbing expenditures that we experience, and that's directly attributable to aging buildings. The point is, if we maintain those buildings more effectively or replace them as needed, I think our plumbing bill might decrease. It's just a thought.
Trustee Haslund, I vaguely recall you mentioning once that there was actually a building in Carpinteria that you had your eyes on or thought might be suitable for what you're talking about. Is that true?
Well, the building was sold, yes. Yes, it is true. But it's been
gone?
sold,
Too
it's
late.
gone.
Too late.
I mean,
Okay.
sometimes we need to jump on opportunities and maybe involve others in the carpentry area to help us locate potential sites that would be either available for sale or donated to a good cause like Santa Barbara City College.
Okay, well, can we move on to our last open session item, 11.6, and I see that Lindsay is still
Yeah,
here.
Lindsay's still here. We had made a presentation, we had consultants in, I don't remember which month. to
Morgan
talk
Stanley
about-
in June.
Morgan Stanley in, to talk about funding options, and this is just for information. This is on certificates of participation as a funding option, so Lindsay's gonna run through the detail, not for a decision, but just to show you. And this, of course, would be in relation to the physical education building and closing the gap between what the state's giving us, $32 million, and then the total cost of the building.
Exactly. So as Dr. Benjamin said, I'm just going to share information that's been provided to us by Morgan Stanley, our bond underwriter, on what the cost would be to the district to borrow funds potentially for the PE project in the form of COPs, which are also called lease revenue bonds. And we just have a few slides. We don't have to walk through all these numbers in detail. Each slide repeats the same information, but based on us borrowing more money. So this first slide is that if we were to borrow $2 million and we paid it back over 15 years, that's the first scenario, that this would be the total cost of having borrowed that $2 million. We'd have to pay back $2.7 million. And then the second column is if we borrowed it over 20 years, so that reduces our monthly payment, but increases the interest amount and the interest we would pay. And then in scenario 3, you have that if we, the term was over 25 years, further reducing our monthly payment, but further increasing the interest rate and the dollar amount that we would be paying in interest over that time period. So these slides look the same for each one. So this is the $2 million version. And then if we were to borrow $4 million, $6 million, and all the way up to $8 million. So as you look at these dollar amounts of what our annual payments would be, we would need to be paying that back from our general fund. So that's, you know, something to keep in mind, that we would have to account for that within our budget. And the percentage rate obviously goes up the farther we go out in the years, in the terms that we take. One last thing I wanted to wrap up with is just a reminder that these types of COPs we could receive, and we could, if we were able to get a bond, we would be able to pay them back through the bond. So that would be an option for us if we were interested in bridging, you know, that time period until we got a bond, and then we could pay back what we borrowed through the COP.
Got it.
That's it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Lindsay, is this kind of like would be the equivalent of like a home equity line? No, because the note's not on our own buildings, or?
Yeah, it's just a different type of bond that doesn't require us to go out and get voter approval. It's a quick timeline, it's very flexible. They often do pledge like an asset. We own lots of assets. That would be what our
So like they,
our pledge
so
would
they
be.
have like a lien necessarily on one of our,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But, and then they would hold the note, obviously, and then, okay.
Yep.
So,
Got it.
last time, we talked about what the uncovered costs were, which I assume this is focused on that. You said it was too soon to know. Are we still there? Is that changed?
We're getting closer. We've done a lot of work with the architects just this last week, just in the last 2 days. And I've talked to them about how we promised that we'd be coming to the board, they'd be coming to the board quarterly. So we are planning on having them come and do an updated report at the January board meeting and providing new information as to where we've gotten with the swing space. We have some pretty promising information that that idea of the phased building is going to work well, where we can keep the gym and that will reduce our swing space costs considerably. So I'm working with them to try and provide you with some updated swing space costs for January, and they'll show you where we're at with the plans for the building. It's exciting.
Any other questions? If not, before I entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session, Trustee Hasland would like to say a few words in honor of Pope Freeman, a longtime member of the faculty at SBCC.
And normally we adjourn the meeting in honor of someone who has passed on, and since we're going into a closed session, that doesn't seem to work. So hence I suggested we do this. Pope Freeman was a long-term member of our faculty. He gave life to our theater program. He was a gifted teacher, a gifted director. He was a gifted actor, and I had the privilege once of evaluating him teaching in class, and he did exactly what every teacher should do, ignored me, and just went about his business teaching. That's what he was supposed to do. He's also a good friend, and he became ill with Parkinson's disease and passed on. And he was noted in the Independent with the lead article, but I didn't want that to pass without us taking a moment to reflect on a life well lived and service generously given to this institution.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn to closed session?
Do.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. And all in favor? Aye. Okay.